So hey anime fan, the series name is What If Naruto was a dragon slayer in Fairytail. So let's start the series. 3 people and a cat were standing across from each other on a barren battlefield with several bodies covering the ground with blood and mutilated parts. One of them was a tall, lean yet muscular man with dark blue hair and looking at his opponent sharply with his green eyes. His eyes have rings around it, and his whole dark body was covered in blue markings. He was bare-footed, wearing dark baggy pants and a sash around his waist. His whole body was covered in cuts and bruises, and he was currently panting, showing that he was in a fierce battle. This was the Black Dragon of Apocalypse, the dragon, and Acnologia. Across from him to his left was standing another person with his faithful blue Exceed, who was now lying down face first. He had an athletic build. He was wearing a knee-length white-colored trousers which had been torn from several sides. He had spiky pink/salmon color hair and had black onyx eyes. He had bandage on his right arm and was looking at the battlefield. Every single of his nakama, all his comrades and friends except Happy, had been killed by hand of the Black Dragon and the third person. This person is known as the Dragon Slayer of Fairytail, the Salamander, brother of Zerif Drangneel and his strongest demon, Yendi. This was Natsu Drangneel. And the third person, currently he is the strongest of the 3. He is currently totally covered in white with white clothing with intricate design, also with wings behind him. He was said to be the most evil mage that roamed the Earthland. This was the Black Mage Zerif. His full name is Zerif Drangneel, the mage who taught Mavis Vermilion and her friends and later on fell in love with her. Contrary to the popular belief, these 3 mages were not the most evil beings that walked the face of Earthland. All 3 of them were strong, very strong, but with strength there were some drawbacks. Acnologia got strong through his dragon slaying. He was actually one of the first dragon slayers and loved to fight, but one day his city was attacked by the dragons, indirectly killing his family. Due to this he sought out revenge against those dragons for harming his family, and believing all of them to be evil. He later on fell in love with a woman, but she was also killed, but time it was Slayer looking for him for battle. After this turned against his kin completely, killing them without any care and bathing in their blood. With the excess using of his magic he himself turned into dragon. He likes the feeling of battle and is looking for challenge. After killing most of the dragons he let the power dictate his action, and constantly looking for challenge and attacking villages looking for said challenge. Zerif Drangneel, a very strong being with happy family which was destroyed when dragons attacked his city, leading to the death of his family. He went to Mildean Magic Academy where he studied connection between life, death and magic, and created our system and Eclipse Gate as a part of his magic and revived his younger brother Natsu. Because of this he was expelled from the academy and was cursed from Anksaram, the god of death. The curse of contradiction not only made him immortal but made kill everything he cared around him unintentionally. Because of this he ended up killing everyone. To stop this he created Aetherius that could kill him. He later on trained Mavis, the first guild master of Fairytail. With both of them later on falls in love with each other. But because of the curse he ended up killing her due to his curse. Because of this he felt that he cannot be loved and went on to build his Alvarez empire. There he is known as Spraygon, opposite of the title of Mavis the Fairy. Because he didn't care about the people of Alvarez as more than pawn, he didn't kill anybody there. But still the place was rich and happy under his reign. He also made plans to stop Acnologia from destroying everything in his path after he went berserk. And lastly Natsu Drangneel, or Aetherius Natsu Drangneel aka Nd, brother to the Black Mage Zerif Drangneel and revived as the strongest Aetherius from the Book of End. He is the foster son of the Fire Dragon King Igneel. Igneel taught him fire dragon slaying magic as his cursed magic was sealed by Zerif. After being revived he didn't acted like a demon except for his thirst to kill Zerif, which is controlled by him willingly. Meaning unlike other Aetherius demons, he can control his urge to kill Zerif. He was extremely powerful and has little to no control over his magic, ending up killing people unintentionally. Later on his mind was erased by Zerif, who gave him to the Fire Dragon King Igneel and was raised and trained by him. But he disappeared on 7th of July X777, leaving with a scarf with scaly design and his smell. But unknown to him, for more Dragon Slayer were sent alongside him along with their dragons 400 years into the future with their dragons, who were then sealed inside their own slayers. Later on he joined a guild called Fairytail. From there on he went on many adventures with his friends, mainly with Team Natsu. He made friends and even found other dragon slayers. He stood up against demons and dark guilds and fought against mages of wizard saint level, and remembered what his life was before being trained by Igneel. But now he lost every single one of his friend, including his guild which he called family. Every single one of them lay on the ground dead. He lost everything against two people who somehow directly or indirectly are related to him. The reasons for his friend's death were standing across from him on the battlefield. The three of them strongest on the Earthland were facing each other on the battleground. On Natsu's face you could see pain, anger, rage and sadness. He saw his surrogate family, the one who provided him with food, shelter and friends, now lay dead on the battlefield, and he was unable to protect them. Across of him, two people stood in front of him with blank expression on their faces. Both Zeref and Acnologia looked as it didn't matter to them, but in there is brief regret and resent. Both know how it feels to lose everything that you cherished. They all were looking at each other. Natsu's face held rage, whereas Zeref and Acnologia stayed calm. After a short while, as they collected their breath, Zeref started to talk. It doesn't feel good, Zeref says, does it? He then looked at Acnologia and then turned towards Natsu. While looking at Natsu, he continues speaking. I know what it feels to lose everything that you cherished and loved, and so does Acnologia. I told you to kill me when you had the chance, but you didn't listen. When I met with you later, I told you that if I die so will you, and told you to not to get attached to these people more than you already were. But again you didn't listen. I have told you that I am the living incarnation of death, and I did what I had to do. I killed them so I could lead the Earthland into a new era of peace. And shut up. Zeref freezes mid-speech and stares at Natsu, whose eyes were covered by the bangs of his hair. What? I said shut up. Natsu says, you say. You know how it feels to lose everything. I don't believe it. He lifts eyes to Zeref and Acnologia. I don't believe it because I don't see it in your eyes, nor in his. He looks towards Acnologia. Many of the people present here who were part of Alvar's and your army lay dead around you, yet you show either respect nor care for them. Acnologia, I don't believe he might have something or someone precious, as he mostly just razed the villages to ground and blasted them into oblivion. Natsu speaks with a dark chuckle. I don't believe it because I don't see either of you caring about it. He would have said more but was stopped as the third person spoke up. You speak as if you know of our past, Aetherius. Acnologia speaks up. You might have known of his. Acnologia points to Zeref in his very heart-induced form, and then brings it back to himself. But mine you don't know. He looks at both of them. You speak as if I was born evil, and there was not a single moment in my life where I didn't love anybody. But remember that you know nothing of who I am and what I have been through, so keep your words to yourself, son of Igneel. Acnologia finished speaking, and just as he finishes, Zeref starts chuckling and then laughing wholeheartedly as Acnologia. Natsu and Happy, who was now standing fully, were looking at him as if he finally lost his mind. Natsu Happy says as Natsu looks down at him with serious expression. Why is he laughing? I don't know. Happy. Natsu responds as the laughing of Zeref might have sounded creepy at any other time, but now it was just pissing him off and was powering up. What do you find so amusing? Zeref. Acnologia asks Zeref as he himself was getting agitated with his laugh and starts powering up. It is amusing, Zeref replies with a smile, getting on the nerves of conscious people that the three of us, the most powerful wizards in history, are currently fighting against each other, and we are fighting against to fight for what we believe is the right thing. He then looked at the sky, and it's quite amusing as the three of us has the same start from that one incident that changed our life. He then looked down at the others. The dragon attack. Acnologia and Natsu stiffen as both of them remember that incident clearly. That day many of the family, including Acnologia's and his Natsu's family, were walking through the shopping area of the city as a 5-year-old and 9-year-old Zeref were walking through the streets, with Acnologia walking with his family. All of them looked happy, but it all went south when the dragons came out of nowhere and attacked the city. The attack led to the deaths of the family of the two, and one of them literally dying. None of them could forget the day. The dragon attack on our city which led to this and shaped us to what we are now. Zeref continues, it was the day that turned our life and set different path for us. We all decided the path that we thought was the best. I tried to change life and death, and Acnologia decided to destroy what he thought was evil, and you Natsu, you become a super-powered uncontrolled child. We are all at least 400 years old. Our lives started 400 years ago, and here we are victims of the dragon attack 400 years later, standing against each other fighting. Yes, I found it very amusing. He then alongside Natsu and Acnologia starts powering up, giving him an angelic hue. And unknown to the three of them, they didn't notice a spark occurring in the area where they were fighting. With their increase in power, the sparks continue to grow. I don't what you think or want, Zeref, and I don't care if you are my brother. I will kill you, Natsu says angrily and starts charging up his attack. You think you could beat me? Aetherius Acnologia says. I must say that I had fun battling you, Zeref, and your puny guild, but I must end this battle now. Both of you are idiots thinking you could beat me, Zeref says from across. In my current form, I'm at my best, and I shall defeat both of with this power. As the three of them were charging their respective attacks, Happy turns his attention towards the sparks that were occurring in the area and looks at Natsu and his two opponents, and then back towards the sparks. What is happening? He thought, and looks back at Natsu, who was oblivious to the occurrence just like his opponents. Fire Dragon King Roar, Apocalypse Dragon Roar, Death Pillar. The three of them launches their respective attacks with Natsu letting out huge torrent of flames at Zeref and Acnologia. As Acnologia lets out his own roar in blue color and Zeref brought both of his hand together to complete his spell. As their spells collide, it lets out a massive shockwave, and the place where the sparks have been forming ripped open a gate, just like Anima. Natsu and Happy thought simultaneously. The Anima then starts a vacuum trying to suck everything. Desperately, everybody conscious grabs or tries to grab something but were sucked into the Anima. Zeref, trying to stop it, cast Neo Eclipse on the portal desperately, but it proved futile as the Anima increased its force in sucking the things and wizards present and took on a new golden gate glow. Eventually Zeref, Acnologia and Happy were sucked into the Anima along with injured and unconscious wizards and threw them into the Anima. After going on for about 5 minutes, the Anima closes itself as it leaves behind a barren battlefield with wizards and people lying here and there. But nobody knows why did the Anima open right now at this place, and where did it take the people alongside Natsu, Happy, Zeref, and Acnologia. XXXXXXXXX. Narutoverse. Elemental Nations, October 10th. Kanahegakure no Sato, Fire Nation. It was night when Kyubi no Kitsune, the nine-tailed fox, went berserk after being forcefully extracted from his Jinchuriki. In the middle of village hidden in the leaves, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, was with his wife Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. The previous Jinchuriki of the Kyubi went into labor with their son, Naruto. It was all going well, but every good thing must come to an end. This also ended when Biwako, one of the medics who was holding their son, was killed, and from behind her a person wearing spiral mask came and held the newborn child in his hands. The man in the mask had a Sharingan named Tobi. He held the newborn Naruto at the point of kunai, threatening to the Hokage to step away from the Kyubi Jinchuriki. Tobi then threw Naruto upwards, prompting the new father to use Hirishin, the Flying Thunder God technique, to save Naruto from falling on the kunai. Later on he found that Naruto had been covered in explosive tags and teleports away to keep him safe. Using this as a way, Tobias this time to attack the injured Jinchuriki and extract the bijou from its host. It led to the weakening of Kushina as Kyubi was extracted from her, and she watched as he used Sharingan to put the Kyubi in his Tsukiyomi Genjutsu, and use it to send Kyubi to attack Konoha as he stood atop of it. After a short while, Minato returned and fought against the masked ninja. At first it was one-sided fight, with Tobi mostly dodging the strikes made by the fire shadow, but after some time he was successful in hitting the masked ninja with one of his Rasengan, and branded him with Flying Thunder God's seal, allowing him to teleport to Tobi whenever he wanted. He then used the contract seal on Tobi, releasing the nine tails from his control, and forcing him to use his Kamui to warp away. But unknown to both of them, their battle between the space-time ninjutsus led to sparks appear in the area. Both of them ignored it to keep attention at each other, but still kept wary of it, believing it to be some kind of attack from their opponent. As he was about to warp away, unknown to both of them, some kind of portal appeared above the as two figures totally exhausted and injured fell on top of the Kyubi. After that, Kyubi began retreating away from the village, but kept on its attack against the ninjas that followed it. Kyubi then prepared another beast ball, but Minato summoned Gamabunta, and used all his chakra to teleport away with Kyubi to different location, where Kushina used her chakra chains and barrier ninjutsu to keep Kyubi. Seal the Kyubi back into me, Kushina says as she saw that she is dying very slowly. I am dying, and it will be good if it is sealed in me when I die. I won't do it, Minato replies as he looks at Kushina and looks at Naruto. I believe we should seal it in Naruto. I believe he will be able to use Kyubi's power at its maximum. Moreover, if you die, then Kyubi will be eventually reforms at his place. As both of them comes to a conclusion, albeit quiet hesitantly, unknown to all of them, one of the figures on top of the Kyubi, a blue cat with a green napkin around his neck, wakes up weakly, and looks down to see two humans, one a woman from whose back several chains were coming out, and other one who was drawing some kind of circles, and other think on the belly of a baby. This cat, being extremely weak, falls down again and gets unconscious. Minato then uses dead demon consuming seal to split the Kyuubi chakra to seal half of Kyuubi into Naruto and other half into himself and summon the Shinigami. Kyuubi, seeing what was happening, tries to run away by attacking Naruto, but Kushina and Minato jumps in front of him, taking the full force of the attack meant for him. Minato then makes altercation in the seal and made an 8-trigram seal to enforce the seal on the stomach of Naruto, sealing Yang chakra of Kyuubi along with a part of his and Kushina chakra into their child. As they were slowly dying, both was unable to see, but chakra of 2 more beings was being sealed inside Naruto alongside the 3 of them. XXXXXXXXX. At first Shinigami was angry that a mortal had dared to summon him, and then he was impressed with how he managed to him. He was later pleased to see the reason was summon him, but later on he was irritated after he found out there were several things. First and foremost, he was irritated to find out that the payment that he was to receive was incomplete. The payment was that the one who summoned will forfeit his soul to the Shinigami along with the soul of the other being that is being sealed. But in this case the payment was half, as a part of the soul and chakra was sealed into the Jinchuriki. To say he was impressed would be an understatement, as nobody had shown the amount of intelligence to outsmart the Shinigami when making these kind of contracts. Another thing that irritated him was that he felt instead of 3 there was 5 different distinct chakra was sealed inside the newborn, but he was sure, but he only had 2 half soul as a payment. But he had to complete the procedure and needed 2 more souls as a payment. To complete the number of souls he looked around and saw 3 more bodies. One was a woman with red hair, other was a male with pink hair and scaly scarf, and a weird blue cat with green cloth around his neck. For some unknown reason he felt that the bodies of the male and cat should not be present here, but ignoring said feeling, he chose to extract the soul and chakra out of the bodies, or what was left of it, as the 3 beings were nearly dead and had no chance of survival. He proceeded towards the male with pink hair and did the same thing, but to his surprise the body didn't have an ounce of chakra. He went to the body of the weird blue cat and felt that this body also didn't have any chakra at all. Lastly he went towards the woman, but he felt the same thing with her. But the surroundings had the different chakra signatures, meaning that these people had the chakra as well. It's like somebody took their chakra and put somewhere else. And suddenly realization dawned on the Shinigami as he went towards the baby and felt for different chakra inside the newborn's body, and to his surprise he found that, apart from the signature of the boy himself, the child was possessing 5 extra chakra. Shinigami sighed as he looked around. The situation is more complicated than I originally thought, Shinigami thought to himself. As he starts to fade, I need to discuss it with the person that have summoned, along with the other tenants that this child is now carrying. After completing his train of thoughts, Shinigami decided to seal the bodies of dead and leave the child alone as 2 ANBU came out of forest with an elderly man in robes. The man was very old and was once known as the god of shinobi. The 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, now stood at the place where the final battle took place, already knowing the fate of his successor, now predecessor, and his wife, and looked down as the ANBU brought the child to him. Was it the right thing you did? Minato Sarutobi thinks, as he looked at the content and smiling face of the sleeping child. Was putting such a big burden on your own son was the best decision. Call the council, the Hokage commanded. We have some things that need to be discussed. Few of the ANBU went away to call the councilmen and women. The blonde child shifted in his embrace as the god of shinobi cradled him in his hands with a smile on his face and walked towards the Hokage tower. XXXXXXXXX. Meanwhile, inside mind of Naruto, Natsu was having a massive headache, just like the time when he had accidentally dropped strawberry cake that was meant for Urza, and after that she had beaten him senselessly. He remembered after that he should be careful around the strawberry cake that is for Urza, but what he wanted to know that why his head was pounding. The last thing he remembered was the attack, and his fight with Zeref and Acnologia. As if he had remembered something important, Natsu shot up and looked around to see Black. Natsu thought as he curiously looks around and see that Happy, his faithful companion, was waking up just like him. Natsu, Happy whined in his childish voice, "What did you do to me?" Natsu then looks at Happy questioningly and asks a question. "Happy, what is the last thing you remember?" Natsu asks, and looks in front of him to see massive steel bars. He gets up and walks toward the steel bars as Happy stood up straight, and walks behind him looking curiously around him. "Well, after you, Zeref and Acnologia, launched your attacks, there was massive portal like anima appeared there and sucked all of us into it. Zeref then used his Neo Eclipse at the mouth of the anima portal, but we were sucked into it too. After that in the portal I felt as if somebody was absorbing my magic and taking it forceful out of my body. And then I woke up on a massive red building of sort, and below me were two people. One male with blonde hair and other female with red hair, with the man drawing some kind of tattoo on a baby's stomach. Natsu nodded his head, signaling happy that he heard what he said. He then turned his head to look and saw that there was some kind of paper attached to the wall to the side of the bars. Natsu tried to walk out of the place, but to his surprise, as he tried to take a step out of the bars, he was thrown back with a powerful force as blasts of air resounded from the bars and throwing him back into something fluffy, he thought as he touched back. Natsu happy shouted in concern and looks at Natsu, but soon his concern changes to that of fear as he notices something behind him, and his face turns pale. Natsu happy says again, but this time in scared whisper, "What is it, Happy?" Natsu asks as he saw the Exceed look behind him and whimper, and point at something. Natsu then turns to look behind him to see a giant set of red slit eyes looking back at him as the eyes rose up and 9 giant tails were swishing back and forth. Both of their eyes grew wide as the eyes stooped, rising, and were looking down at them, creeping them out extremely as the color from their faces was drained. Suddenly a giant face of a fox came out of the darkness, heading towards them rapidly, and both Happy and Natsu let out a huge shriek that would have sounded all the way from Konoha to Kumo, or from Magnolia to Crocus, the capital of Fiori. H. Both Natsu and Happy shouts as they run towards the steel bars with Happy in front. As they were heading towards the steel bars, Natsu remembers that he was unable to move past the steel bars, but to his surprise Happy passed through the bars. This increased his confidence and speed, and he ran towards the bars to escape the giant fox as the said fox opened his jaw while coming over him, but to his surprise he was again thrown back with double force, missing the jaws of the fox with 9 tails, and striking in its belly and driving the air out of the fox. Huh! Natsu questions as he get from "What's the big deal, why can't I pass through the bars?" He then looks up at the fox as he regained his bearing and looks down at Natsu curiously. He can't pass through the seal, the fox thoughts. Well, if I can't pass through the gates, then I sure as hell can't get eaten by freaking giant fox with 9 tails and rabbit ears, Natsu shouts as he lit his hands on fire and prepares to fight. As his hands get covered in fire, a look of surprise and astonishment goes through the face of the Kyuubi, and he grins at the person with he is stuck in the mindscape of the pathetic child he is now sealed into. Happy was looking at them from the outside. "You think you could beat me, you pathetic human," Kyuubi states as it looks at Natsu and Kyuubi. Both lunged at each other, but before the two of them could strike him, a large blast is sounded as both Natsu and Kyuubi gets blasted back into the room with a crunch. Both were groaning as they both shakily stand up and look at each other. What the heck was that? Natsu shouts as he held his side to stop the pain and looks toward the Kyuubi, but to his surprise smoke was coming from it. "Don't look at me," mortal Kyuubi says back. "I don't have a clue to what actually happened here." Both were looking at each other looking for some answers. For Natsu, what was happening? What was the giant fox and where he and Happy were? For the fox it was curiosity as to how the mortal was and why can't he move out of the seal. "Will you shut up?" A new voice sounded out as 2 figures emerges from the darkness from the side outside of the seal and looks in the place where both Kyuubi and Natsu were. Natsu then notices that one was a tall man with blonde hair and blue eyes with sharp features and wailing with authority just like Makarov walks, and other was a woman with red hair and violet eyes. Natsu and Kyuubi both looks towards them, and the 9 tails growled at them. As both of them looks at Happy, then Natsu, and then at Kyuubi. Kyuubi lunges at them, but as he neared the gates he was again thrown back violently with smoke coming out of his body. Both the man and woman turns toward Natsu and ask at the same time, "Who are you?" Before he could answer, another voice came out of the darkness. "That's a question even I want to know the answer of." An ethereal form appears behind the man and woman with as the a man with black hair, black eyes and wearing a dark black cloak and a scythe now was standing behind them. "So tell me, who are you?" the new person asks. Again Natsu would have answered the question if it wasn't for the another word that came from behind him, spoken by the Kyuubi, that chilled the bones of every human, demon and exceed present there. "Shinigami." Shinigami, Kyuubi says as the ethereal being took his form of a man, overall wearing black and a scythe in one of his hands holding it upright. Everybody present there stopped breathing as every single being looked at the ethereal being. "You are right, Kyuubi. I am the Shinigami," the Shinigami states as he looks at them, "and right now I am irritated. Want to know why?" Everybody shook in and nodded their heads as the Shinigami spoke in irritated tone, and Minato started sweating hard. Ignoring their action, Shinigami continued his statement. First of all, I was summoned to the mortal plane, and I do not like to be summoned to a mortal plane. Shinigami spoke as he raised a finger. Secondly, the person who summoned me cheated me out of the payment that was needed. He raised a second finger as he spoke, and Kyubi and Kushina glared at Minato as sweat now coming out of him like a waterfall. Don't worry about it, Shinigami states as Kyubi, Kushina and Minato looks at him with surprise, and Natsu and Happy were looking at him with confusion. What? Shinigami asks. I was actually impressed with the feat that you have pulled, Minato Namikaze. The fourth Hokage. Minato let out a breath he was holding as both Natsu and Happy looks at him with, why don't they? Last person they knew who was confronted by a god was cursed and later tried to rule the world, yet it was not pretty, only for a little while. After that I was again irritated, Shinigami states as raise a third finger as the last thing on the list got me quiet agitated. As the dead demon consuming seal was as complex as it is, but due to some unseen circumstances, the sealing became more complicated. And do you know why? Shinigami spoke as the others shook their heads again in a no. Looking at them, Shinigami sighed and spoke. Due to the presence of these two, some complication has occurred in the sealing process? Son, now the question that I have asked, who are you two and from where you are from? Shinigami spoke as he looked at them, and tell everything truthfully, for I will not think twice before taking your soul with me. Natsu and Happy took a huge gulp down their throats as Natsu regains his confidence and put on his famous grin. He was feeling nervous due to the stare that the Shinigami was giving. The confidence that he had built was breaking at his nerves. Both Minato and Kushina also turned to look at the pink-haired man standing in front of them, while Shinigami is getting impatient as he tapped his feet on the floor. Hi, Natsu says with a nervous smile. I am Natsu Drangneel, and he is Happy, and we are from Fairytail. I, Happy said. Shinigami, Kyubi, Minato and Kushina look at both Natsu and Happy as if they had grown a second head. Sighing, Shinigami looks at them as he noticed and felt that the pink-haired male was speaking the truth. He then looks at the others with him. Minato and Kyubi looks confused and weirded out, but Kushina on the other hand looked quiet, intrigued. Really? Kushina asks as both Natsu and Happy nods their heads. So, which fairy tale are you from? At this both Natsu and Happy face faults. We are not part of a fairy tale, Natsu and Happy shouts at her as she looks at them bewildered. But you said you are from Fairytail? He said we are from Fairytail, Happy states, but you said we are from a fairy tale. What's the difference? Minato asks. The difference is very vast, Happy said. We are from a guild called Fairytail, not a fairy tale. As Happy finishes, a look of understanding crosses the face of Shinigami, Minato and Kushina, but Kyubi snorts as he looks at them. Why would a person name their guild on such things? Kyubi asks as he was also intrigued by the new arrivals and wants to know what made them irritate the Shinigami. Before Happy could say, Natsu spoke. Do fairies really have tails? Do they even exist? Natsu said as he looks at everyone and closed his, remembering the time Makarov told him the same thing when he first joins the guild, just like them. Fairy tale is an eternal mystery, a never-ending adventure. He finishes as both him and Happy closed their eyes with a fond smile as everybody smiles at the amount of love with which he spoke, except for the Kyubi, but even he acknowledged the warmth with which he spoke of his guild. Well, that's all well and good, Shinigami speaks again, but this guild should not be present in this nation, let alone in this world. What do you mean should be present in this world? We are still on Earthland, aren't we? Natsu asks as both he and Happy began to look around nervously. Minato and Kushina looked surprised too, but the question in their mind was asked by the Kyubi. We don't know about the Earthland you speak of. Mortal Kyubi speaks for all of them, but right now you are in elemental nations. Why don't you tell us from the beginning? Child, Shinigami speaks as both Happy and Natsu looks at him, nods their heads. Both then began to tell them their tale of who they were, where was Fairytail, the adventures they went on their trip in Edolos and finding that one of their friend was alive, the Tenru Island incident with Agnologia and Zeref, the Grand Magic Games and the dragon attack with future Rogue and Lucy, battle with Tartaros and the dragons coming out of their slayers, then the battle with Zeref, and explained to Kushina how Zeref and Agnologia got so powerful. As he was explaining about Zeref, Shinigami had a tick mark on his head and it continues to grow as he told him about the curse and its result was Zeref becoming immortal. So Anxaram, Shinigami starts gave Zeref the curse of contradiction. At the hesitant nod given by Natsu, Shinigami let out a string of curses, some of which should be unknown. That freaky S**n of A B*********H. I am so going to rip his ass with 200-foot pole and then shove it down his throat. Then shove my hand through his ass and bring his intestine, and will make him skip with it. It went for a few more minutes as the people present were getting paler and paler with each threat and words the Shinigami yelled. Happy quickly went behind Natsu. Kushina and Minato hugged each other as Kyubi curled himself into a ball as the form of Shinigami started changing into some kind of demonic entity. Our Lord Shinigami Natsu bravely speaks as behind him the rest say their prayers for him as the demonic form of Shinigami turns to look at him. Why are you so angry? He asks innocently as Shinigami sighs. Because the good-for-nothing god of death of your world gave someone a curse that will not just make the immortal but downright powerful, and that is unintentionally. At the confused looks Shinigami elaborated the curse a bit more. The curse when given to person who loves life will end up killing everything in his surrounding that has life. From humans to animals to the environment, you are lucky that Zeref was able to have gained enough control to stop some of the most devastating effect of the curse. And also you should feel lucky that the person the curse was put on didn't care about life in general. I wouldn't say he didn't care about life. Happy states. You say something. Shinigami reverts into a more human form. No, nothing. Happy frantically yells as he shook his head in a no. Lord Shinigami, I have a question. Natsu asks. Sure, ask away. Natsu then take a deep breath and asks the questions on his mind. Where are we? Who are they? What is elemental nations and what is happening? Shinigami looks at him. I don't think that's just a question. Shinigami spoke as he looks at the flustered salamander. But anyhow, I should have expected the questions you asked after spoke that. Shinigami begins to explain them. Where are they, and what generally consist of the world, including the ninja life, at which both Natsu and Happy got a gleam in their eyes. Ignoring this occurrence, he explained other things about the life on this world, at which both Minato and Kushina, about the villages and the clans with bloodlines. Natsu and Happy learned their names, giving their own input, and also told him about the tailed beasts and what they are, at which Kyubi boasts about himself at how he is the strongest of the all, and was later on shut up by Minato at how he was sealed inside two women who kept him at tight leash. At which the Kyubi growled and leapt at the dead Hokage but was shot back with a shock and lightning running through his body. At seeing that, Natsu remembered a very important thing he needed to know right now. Why can't I come out? Natsu asks, and seeing their confused expression he elaborated. Why can't I travel like you guys in and out of this room unlike you guys? At this everybody got shocked except for Happy and Kyubi. Both already had seen it happening, but Shinigami narrowed his eyes at him in suspicion. That's interesting. As the seal that was made to hold the demon inside the cage, Shinigami says with narrowed eyes, unless you are hiding something from us the ninjas. And Shinigami looks at Natsu with hardened gaze as he begins to sweat, but Happy begins to protest. Natsu is not a demon. Happy yells in protest, and to shock of their all an unexpected supporter of them in the form of Kyubi. He is right, Lord Shinigami. Kyubi spoke for them as everybody, even Shinigami, turns his head to look at the Kyubi in surprise as Natsu looks at him with thankful gaze. I don't think even in other worlds there will be a demon with pink hair. This broke the gratitude in Natsu as he starts yelling at the Kyubi. It's not pink, you overgrown dimwit fox. It's salmon. Natsu yells at the fox as Kyubi gains a tick on his forehead at disrespect given to him. Who are you calling in dimwit? You idiot! A banter starts between them, not caring that Shinigami was standing just a few feet from them. He is quite sensitive about his hair, Minato states while looking at Kushina as she was the same regarding her hair. She nodded while looking at the bickering duo, dumbfounded at the fact at seeing the Kyubi fighting like a 5-year-old. You don't know the half of it, Happy states while looking at the scene like it is a regular occurrence. Most the time Natsu starts the fight because somebody insulted his hair. Minato and Shinigami sweat drop at the nonchalant statement as Kushina nods her head. I get that, Kushina speaks as she looks at them. What I don't get is how someone like him could be a demon. Minato nods his head with the statement. He is not a demon, Happy says again as everybody including Kyubi and Natsu looks at him because he is an Aetherius. Happy says as he looks at them as if they know what Aetherius is, and Natsu develops a massive sweat drop at his forehead at the statement. I am sorry, but what is an Aetherius? Kushina asks, and before Natsu could answer, Happy beat him to it. Oh, that's a race of powerful demons on our world. As he said that, everybody face falls into the ground except Natsu. What's the difference? What's the difference? Everybody yells as Happy again hid behind Natsu. Before they could say anything, Shinigami spoke up. It will be easier to understand if Natsu explained this to us. After that, Natsu sighs and begins to telling them about the story of how he become an Aetherius. What is their relation to Zeref, and why they were created, including what was his relation to Zeref. At the end they were a little overwhelmed by the amount of info he had given them. Let me get this straight, Minato spoke on the behalf of everyone. Zeref, whose full name is Zeref Drangnil, is your brother. He studied the relation between life, death and magic which pissed of the Angsaram, Shinigami of your world, who in turn cursed your brother with immortality, and killing everything he loved. To end his despair he created Aetherius demons, in short you and few others to kill him. That sums it up, right? Yeah, that's it. Huh, and I thought our lives were more messed up, Kyubi says with a chuckle. Ignoring them, Natsu asked Shinigami a question. So can you do something to send us back? Natsu asks while pointing at himself and Happy. Shinigami looks at them and for the 10th time sighed again. It would have been difficult but possible. As he said this, both Natsu and Happy smiled like a Cheshire cat but stopped as he continued. But now it is impossible. As the seal that you two are sucked in makes it impossible for you two to come out of your hosts, but also that most of your powers will go to your host as he grows up. He completed before either Natsu or Happy could protest, and their face fell because of the reasons he said. Now that we have established as to who you are? Shinigami speaks, getting the attention, and continues, we shall discuss your role regarding the hosts you five now reside in and the proper payment. Before they could say something, Kushina comes to Shinigami. What do you need, child? Shinigami asks Kushina as she stood in front of the entity. Lord Shinigami, I have a request, Kushina says and looks at Shinigami to see him nod at her. Can I please see my baby currently? And what is happening to him? She asks as few tears begin to make way through her eyes. Looking at the troubled mother face, the Shinigami caved and nodded his head. Very well, but after that we may discuss the role of all of you in his life and the proper payment that I will have. As he said this, he used his scythe to slash at the air and a rip is formed to show a newborn child with 3 whisker marks on his face. They looked around to see where they were. Residents of this world already knowing where they were, while Natsu and Happy remained confused, but when they heard what was being talked regarding the child, their blood ran cold. XXXXXXXXXX Elemental Nations. Sunagakure no Sato, night of October 10th, Hokage Tower. Hiruzen Sarutobi, a man given the moniker of the Professor, known to the shinobi world as the God of Shinobi. But right now he was having a massive headache. The council was called and at once they started bitching about, sorry about the language, but that's what he is thinking, the appearance of Kyubi in their village. He has to take the mantle of Hokage again because right now he doesn't think anybody is worthy enough of the position. Granted, he could make Danzo the Hokage, but his method with how the village should be run are questionable. And also he will destroy their legacy, Hiruzen thought as he looked down at the bundle and his arms shifted their last memory. He then released a bit of Ki, silencing the whole place. He looked at the both sides as he saw the shinobi council that consists of clan heads, Jounin Nanbu commander, and the civilian council consisting of prominent merchants and traders and the 2 advisors and the elders. They had already talked about the losses. Truthfully, it wasn't the thing he was dreading the most. What was getting at his nerves was the talk regarding the Kyubi and its new Jinchuriki. The Kyubi attack has led to many lost, Hokage stated, including our beloved 4th Hokage. At this, every part of the council went into a calm silence, but his death was not for nothing. He defeated the Kyubi at the cost of his life. At the announcement of Kyubi defeat, the council lightened up a bit, but still the somber atmosphere was there. What happened to the Kyubi? An old man mainly covered in bandages spoke. You don't have to worry about it, Danzo the Hokage proclaims. Yes, we do. The now named Danzo states, as a shinobi knows that a bijou, which is physical manifestation of chakra, cannot be killed. It can only be sealed. As he completed his sentence, the whole civilian council went into disarray. The Hokage cursed the old warhawk for his knowledge and let Naruto out of hiding place from behind his robe in his arms. You are right, Danzo, Hiruzen states. The 4th died while sealing the Kyubi and now Jinchuriki. This is Naruto Uzumaki. Jinchuriki to the 9-tailed fox and the legacy of the 4th Hokage. As he finished the sentence, civilian council shouted for the head of the child. And as he was feeling the killing intent directed at him because of the civilians, little Naruto started crying while the shinobi and the elders remained quiet. As Danzo spoke up again. You should give me the child. Hiruzen, Danzo says as he looked at the child. I will make sure to train the Jinchuriki into the perfect weapon. As he completed the sentence, somebody from the civilian council spoke up. Are you crazy? We should kill the demon now, he is weak. Just as the civilian completed the sentence, massive Ki from the shinobi council and the Hokage fell upon the civilian council and Danzo. You should know to whom you are referring to. Danzo Sarutobi speaks coldly to him as Danzo flinches at the tone he used, and then turned towards the civilians. And in whose presence you are talking? You are saying that we shall kill the Jinchuriki now. Tell me this, are you a shinobi or a seal master like the 4th? The councilman shook his head as he heard the Hokage as he looks at person and increase. the intensity of his ki. So tell me this, if he tries to kill this child now, even though I won't allow it, but just for a moment you were able to kill the child, what will happen? For all we know, the Kyuubi could be released again, as he said that many of them present in the council paled as the thought crossed their mind. That's why I am telling you, you should hand over his training to me. Lord Hokage Danzo tries again, I shall make sure he remains loyal to us. You will make sure he remains loyal to you, the Hokage roared as the whole council shifts uncomfortably in their seats. And you don't have to worry, he will be trained in the shinobi program like a normal child, Danzo. Surely, you don't mean to train the demo? At the glare he was receiving from the Hokage, he quickly changed his words, the child into the academy with our children. Yes, I do, the Hokage stated firmly. You can't do that, Lord. Before he could complete the sentence, the council was filled with huge amount ki being released by the Hokage. Tell me, who is the Hokage councilman? The Hokage asked coldly. You are, was the weak reply. Yes, I am. So I don't need to be told what I can do and what I can't. Understood, the civilian weakly nods his head. And before I let you go, this will be the final law. The Hokage says whatever has been discussed here will be an S-ranked, and disclosure of any of this information outside the walls of this room from now on will be punishable by death. Now out, the Hokage yells out as the civilian council along with the elders went out of the hall, leaving behind the shinobi council. You know that they will try to make his life a living hell, Shikaku Nara, Jounin commander and the head of Nara clan, says as he looks at the Hokage. As he nods, this is going to be very troublesome. Inoichi Yamanaka and Chuza Akimichi snickers at their friend's description of the problems they are going to face in a single word. You should have told them his heritage, Saminazuka, a feral-looking woman says as she looked at the child, who now opened her eyes to show ocean blue eyes. They would have accepted him easily. Before the Hokage could reply, another person presents the reasons, and make him the prime target of IWA. Fugaku Uchiha, clan head of the Uchiha clan and head of the Konoha police force, speaks up. We just survived the Kyuubi attack. With the death of the fourth, our forces are very much down, and we won't survive an attack if IWA decides to launch an attack on us. Not to mention Kumo Hayashi Hyuga, clan head of the Hyuga clan, speaks. They tried to kidnap Kushina when she was a genin. If they find out about the child she had with the fourth, Kumo will try everything they could to get their hands on him. It was the most logical thing that the Hokage had done by hiding the heritage of Naruto Uzumaki. Even if the given name still gives way to much information, Shibi Aburame, clan head of the Aburame clan, says, he is right. The amount of wealth and power the Uzumaki held is still quiet. No, Inoichi says, and looks to the curious eyes of Naruto as he looks at them and then smiles. And if I am right, the wealth now this kid holds from both his mother and father's side is enough to buy almost all of the village if my estimation is right. You are right, Inoichi, the Hokage says, and that's why I need to hide the facts of his heritage, and hope he will be ready when I tell him about his parents. All of them nodded, and after a few minutes Chuza tries to lighten the mood. Well, that's that, but if we don't care about him, I am sure Kushina will haunt us for the rest of our lives. As he said that, a collective shiver went through everybody's spine as everybody looks at Chuza with a look saying, bad joke, Chuza. If that is all, I have a question for all of you, the Hokage says as he looks at them. How did you know that this was the child and heir of Minato and Kushina? Everybody present there looks at him as if he really wanted to ask the question, but still they decide to answer him. I have the Byakugan, and we were close friends, Hayashi states. I have the Sharingan and considers Kushina my younger sister, and was best friends with my wife. They were also godparents to our child Itachi, Fugaku said with a straight face. I am an Aburame who looks at things logically, and looking at his face I don't need say anything, Shibi states stoically. I am a Nara with IQ above 200, Shikaku says. We are with them, Inoichi and Chuza states while pointing at Aburame head and Nara head. Everybody then turns to look at Tsum, who shrugged his shoulders and states he reeks of ramen, as she said that everybody except the Uchiha, Hyuga and Aburame chuckled, but even their faces graced the briefest of smile on their faces as they remembered their friends. So is anybody going to adopt him? Tsum asks again as the laughter was now under control. I would have allowed it, but it will lead to imbalance in power among the clans, and the elders of your clan may not like it. The Hokage states I might have allowed one of my jounins, but only few them will be able to take care of them properly, and the fact many will resent him for the Kyuubi. I could have given him to Jiraiya and he was asking/commanding me for making him the legal guardian of Naruto. But we needed his spy network. Also, it will be suspicious if the sensei of Minato Namikaze takes in a child whose physical appearance matches to that of the fourth Hokage Yellow Flash Minato Namikaze and Kushina Red Hot Blood Habanero. Uzumaki, The Red Death of Konoha. He may be a Sannin, but even he cannot take a nation alone. Everybody nods their head as they thought about the promises he might have made to the Hokage and his sensei to keep him away from Naruto. Thus I have no other option except for putting him in the orphanage, as the Hokage says that many were ready to protest as they knew the civilian will make it difficult for him to be taken care of. I know, but we don't have any other choice. The amount of headache I will have from the civilian side will increase, but if I put him in orphanage, if somebody decides to adopt him, the civilians won't be able to interfere in his life. Unknown to the third, he will regret this thought later on. XXXXXXXXXX. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kushina was crying as the people talked about her son. Minato at first was confused as to why the hell were they talking about their son like a demon. The confusion then turned to irritation as he looked around the room to see that his sensei and godfather of his son was not present during the meeting. This irritation then turned into rage as Danzo and the civilian council told the third to hand over Naruto. They were disappointed in his sensei, but was elated to see that their friends were respecting his wish. Kushina was confused as to why the third refrained himself from telling them his heritage, but understood why he did that when it was later explained by him, and the reason why Jiraiya was not here. That brought a smile on their faces as they pictured Jiraiya threatening the Hokage for taking care of Naruto coming into their mind. Meanwhile, Natsu and Happy were openly frowning as they looked at the screen. He is a demon, but the child in front of them was now housing not one but two very powerful demons. But that didn't give them the right to ask for the death of the child. Shinigami was scowling at the civilians as he heard what they were planning as the QB scowled at them. And that's the reason why I don't have any love for human, QB states, as he looks at the council. You humans have so much hate inside of you that you let it dictate you. And you call us a demon. Tell me this. I am the entity of mass destruction and hatred. But why most of the destruction happening in the world is result of human interference? He snarls, and now they have the guts to call him me, the great QB no Yoko, a mere child. Shinigami then strikes his scythe on the ground as the rip closes. Sighing, Shinigami looks at the people who made his work. In all of the years he had collected the soul, extremely complicated. He had to admit that the hate of the human make them do stupid things, but he cannot just take the soul of a child, especially that child who now hold the greatest demons of two different worlds. Suddenly an idea struck the deity as he looks at Natsu and gave massive grin creeping him out. Natsu Drang Neil, Shinigami said while looking at Natsu. You are a dragon slayer, right? Natsu nods his head, albeit a bit reluctantly, with Minato, Happy, Kushina and Kyubi looking at them confusedly. I have told you that you all are stuck inside here and I cannot let you out. And as the payment I will have your souls. Usually I would have taken the souls of all of you, but I decided to do something to improve the life of your host a bit, Shinigami says as others looking at him with the look saying, how? I will make your dragon slayer abilities a bloodline. Granted, I will tweak them a bit to make it a bloodline. I will modify it in such a way that he and his child will have the bloodlines in tune to the elements they have affinities to. Meaning they could either have the abilities of fire dragon slayer if they have the affinities of fire. If he has affinity for lightning, he will have the ability of lightning dragon slayer, and so on. Shinigami spoke as their eyes got wide by the end of the sentence. Moreover, the enhanced abilities of the dragon will be granted to him as he activate his dragon slayer capabilities. Also, the curse abilities will be converted into the moves of his bloodlines. What will you provide? Shinigami states as he looks at Happy. What do you mean? Happy asks as gazed at the Shinigami. What I mean is that I need to complete the contract by taking the payment, and if you cannot provide me a good reason, I shall take your soul as payment. Before the Shinigami could take action, Natsu lit his hands on fire, and was now standing in front of Happy protectively. I don't care if you are god of death, Natsu states while glaring at the Shinigami. You are not taking Happy away from me. This surprised the residents of the elemental nation as a mortal. Granted he was a demon, stood up to the Shinigami. Boy, do you not know whom you are threatening? Shinigami states with a frown, but on the inside he was impressed by his bravery. Oh, I understand it perfectly, Natsu says as he takes a stance, but I don't think you understand when I told you what it means to be Fairytail. As they all looked at him, Natsu continues, if it's to protect our family, be it the kingdom, entire world, or the god of death. He stood up defiantly against the Shinigami. We would make anyone our enemy. That's what it means to be Fairytail. Before Natsu could attack, a paw stops him as Happy begins to float with wings sprouting from his back. If it wasn't for the Shinigami, Kushina would have hugged Happy, yelling about its cuteness. I may not be able to provide him with Dragon Slayer abilities, but I can provide him with this. Happy says while pointing at the wings that were coming from his back. Shinigami nods his head and considers his next words. I will convert the wings into a construct of chakra. He needs to activate his chakra to use the wings. And finally he turned his head towards the Kyuubi, looking at him expectantly. Kyuubi sighs and looks at them. He may be a demon, but even he could feel that the kid will need all the help he could get, so in the end he did what he thought what was right. I will modify his dragon I'm making it a Dijitsu, Kyuubi said while looking at the others. The Dijitsu will work as such. It will allow him to break any to every genjutsu except for the Sharingan Infinite Tsukiyomi. Also he could use the Dijitsu to use some of the attacks of the tailed beast while the Dijitsu is activated, and will also enhance the already enhanced sight, also giving him tunnel vision and depth perception, and could see things slowly. The Dijitsu will also allow him to see the chakra pathways and the Tenketsu, and how the chakra is being molded by the person. So overall it is a combination of Sharingan and Byakugan Kushina states, as she saw the Kyuubi nodded. So do these bloodlines will have any stages like the Sharingan, as she asked Happy. Natsu and Kyuubi looks at each other. I don't know about mine, Happy starts, but Natsu's bloodline may include stages. How? Natsu has Dragon Force and Second Origin as two of the stages, including his curse powers, Happy says, and then looks at Kyuubi. I don't know about him, though. My bloodline will have two stages. First is that I have mentioned. Second stage will allow him and his family that he may have to form a contract with the Kitsune contract. I may not be the boss of the contract, but still I am a Kitsune and am also the strongest. As such I have the authority to choose and give them the mark of the summoner for the contract of foxes. And I just made it his bloodline. This also means he may be able to summon me to the plane for a short amount of time. Shinigami nodded his head, but Minato was quite suspicious. Will he be able to summon other contracts? You don't have to worry, Hokage. I have made it his bloodline, so that means he will be able to have other contract if he wishes to have it, but the contract of the foxes will remain with him and his family. That he will have, his mate or in human term wife, will also be able to use this contract if he may wishes for her to be on the contract, Kyuubi said again as everybody present nodded. Now that the bloodline has been discussed, Shinigami states I must bid you farewell, and wish you luck on the journey you are now on. I also hope that luck is with you and the child, as the life of this child is going to be very difficult and full of problems. Also prepare a scroll for him, Natsu, to understand the capabilities of the Dragon Slayer and his bloodline. Both Minato and Kushina will help in creating the scroll for it, and I will provide a way for him to have that scroll, Shinigami says as his form begins to fade. Oh, and also remember that except for Kyuubi, your lives in here are nothing more than temporary, as he is a construct of chakra and may never run out of chakra, but you four on the other hand will end, and at that time I will come to collect your soul. XXXXXXXXXX. 7 years later. Elemental Nations. Sunagakure no Sato, October 10th. A blonde-haired boy with blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on each side of his face on the cheeks was moving through the city very discreetly. Today was his birthday and turned 6 today. But being an orphan, as he didn't have any parents, he didn't had anybody to share this occasion with. Not only that, but on this particular day the people were mean to him more than usual. They even tried to harm him by using him as a target practice for kunai, shuriken and other weapons. When he went to shop, the shopkeepers will drive him out of the shop with broom. Most of the Konoha, that includes the civilian, some Chunin and very few Jounin, hates him. That much he understood. But why did they hate was unknown. The only one who didn't outright hate him and were either neutral or cared about him were the Hokage, shinobi, the clan heads and their family, and the old man and his daughter at the ramen stand, who were the only people to provide him for the food. After he was thrown out of the orphanage 2 years ago, he was founded by the ANBU and was then taken to the Hokage, who later provided him with an apartment and stipend from his own account. He also brings gifts on his birthday and spends some of the time with him. He was the one who introduced him to the Ichiraku ramen, and he loved it. He also knew that he leaves some ANBU guards to watch over him. He knows where they hides and keep looking at him to protect him from any harm from the villagers. He didn't know how, but he could smell and see them. He could also hear a distinct sound of giggling coming from his right side right now. But the weird thing was that to the normal eyes nobody was present. As today was his birthday, along with the defeat of the Kyuubi, he went out to see the festival, but from a distance. He still remembers what happened last time to him during the festival, when some of the drunken villagers formed a mob and tried to kill him. He hid himself from the sight of normal civilian to see the festival, but was found out by a drunk Chunin, who then proceeded to take out his kunai to kill him. but Naruto quickly ran away from him. He went to the Ichiraku stand earlier but ran away from there fast as he saw several villagers forming a mob just a few blocks away. He was now hungry and sad. He decided to stroll near the forest. As he was looking around the forest, the ANBU and him becomes alert as he smelled a drunk Chunin making his way to him. He tensed as the Chunin lifted his eyes to make eye contact with him. So the demon is walking leisurely out here, the Chunin says as he takes his kunai out. Now I can avenge my brother by killing you, demon. I don't know what you are talking about, Naruto stammers it out. Oh, I think you know what I am talking about, the Chunin states. Now stand right there so I could kill you. Before the ANBU could react, the Chunin goes through a sequence of hand seals fire release. Great Fireball Jutsu. A huge fireball is released from the mouth of the Chunin headed towards Naruto. The ANBU were quick to action, with them restraining the Chunin and few running towards Naruto to protect him. But what happened shocked them to their core. The fireball was, instead of harming Naruto, was being sucked into his mouth. As the last of the flame went into his mouth, he gives them a sheepish grin towards the shinobi present there as everybody. Thank you for the meal, Naruto says as the shinobi looks at them with surprise and shock in their eyes and their jaws on the ground. Meanwhile, the ANBU are thinking how they would explain this when they will write this in their report. XXXXXXXXXX. At the Hokage Tower, Hiruzen Sarutobi looks in front of him at the scroll that was delivered to him by his ANBU crow, saying that his little brother found it but none of them were able to open it. Not only that, the scroll either shocked or burned the culprit if they tried to open it with force. He was known as the god of shinobi, but after paperwork and women, this is the only thing that he is unable to understand and escape from. The scroll must have some kind of seal with security measure, one of the ANBU bore states as they surrounded the Hokage to make sure that nothing that comes out of the scroll harms the Hokage. I agree, bore another ANBU with an hawk mask state, but we don't see some kind seal array or matrix on the scroll, and he was right, the scroll was in red color with an intricate design of the golden dragon drawn on the scroll. Before the ANBU or the Hokage could understand or dwell more on the scroll, 3 more ANBU appears via Shushin into the Hokage chamber with Naruto. The Hokage sighs and turns to look at them as he put the scroll down on the table. What happened this time? The Hokage looks at them as they all fidget in their places, while the third raised an eyebrow at their action. After the moment of silence, the ANBU wearing dog mask steps forward. He ate fire, dog said as the Hokage, and the rest of the ANBU looks at him like he finally lost it. I may be old, the Hokage starts, but I am not senile, so instead of joking, please tell what is happening, seriously. But he is telling the truth, Lord Hokage. He had fire, cat masked ANBU said as the third member, a weasel masked ANBU nodded his head. Dog, cat, and weasel, I think you 3 need a vacation. Before they could protest, Naruto chimes in for them. But they are telling the truth, old man, Naruto says as the Hokage looks at him, finally caving in, and told them to tell them everything and not to let out a detail regarding the incident. As they were recounting the incident, Naruto looks around the room as his gaze finally settled on the red scroll with the golden dragon on it. For some reason he felt like the scroll was calling to him. He quickly went and took the scroll from the table and started inspecting. Crow, who was looking at Naruto, let him try, thinking he might be lucky enough to open the scroll. As the dog completed his report, Hokage sighed and looked toward Naruto to see that he was not at his place, and was looked at his side to see the scroll that was proving to be very difficult to open. He tried to warn him, but before he could there was a sound of click as the scroll opened, and he looked around to see the dumbfounded expression on the face. Was it supposed to happen? Naruto asks while looking at the Hokage as the third shook his head and told him to look further in the scroll. Naruto did as he was told but as opened the scroll to look inside. Well, what is it, Naruto? The Hokage asks as he sees the frown. Gigi. I just remembered I don't know how to read. The Hokage looks aghast and looks at the scroll to see if he could read it, and decided to read it for Naruto if he could, and to his surprise he could. Dear reader, if you are able to open this scroll, then you have my abilities and bloodline, the bloodline of a dragon slayer. At this the Hokage looked more shocked and looked at Naruto with surprise, and decided to continue reading the rest for Naruto, as he got a gleam in his eyes to think he has a bloodline. But the next line shocked him more. And if you don't have this bloodline but could still read this, then you are someone who is trusted most by the person with this bloodline. Don't be surprised, as a dragon is known to respect loyalty and trust. So if you are, then don't break their trust. You must be wondering what this bloodline is supposed to do. The abilities of your could be divided into 2 parts. The first will be physical characteristics and other will be elemental characteristics. Physical characteristics. As the title suggests, it gives you the physical capabilities and characteristics of a dragon. These include heightened senses, you could smell people, and various other things. You could see things clearly at the night. It will increase your sense of hearing too, and your body will become strengthened beyond the human limits, which includes more stamina and endurance too. Now the other ability is elemental capabilities of the dragon. Elemental capabilities. Now this is the main ability of dragon slayers. It allows the slayers to breathe their elements without any repercussion and also protect them from the element they have affinity to. For example, if a person of this bloodline have affinity to fire, then he could breathe fire and remain protected from the fire, and same goes for other element. Now comes the major part of your ability. You could eat your respective element. Yes, you could eat your respective element that you have affinity to. Also, when you eat your element, you could regain your chakra that you might have wasted. It means that if you have affinity to fire, and you are low on chakra, you need to eat fire to regain your lost chakra. Similarly, a slayer with the affinity to wind will never run out of chakra, as he could eat air to fill himself up. Also, if you have affinities for more than one element, and then you could eat the other element, and could either combine two elements to attack. For example, you have affinity to fire and lightning, you could combine two to form these attacks. But combining two elements will cost you a lot of chakra. You could eat the elements you don't have affinity to fill up for your wasted chakra, but it could either land you in an hospital, or you have gained a secondary affinity to that element, but I still advise you not to it. It could give a secondary element, but the price is very high of doing it. You need to be extremely lucky to actually survive eating the other elements, as it could land you in a month to a year-long coma. The other part of the bloodline is the digits of the dragon's eye. Unlike the above-mentioned characteristics of your bloodline, you need to activate this part, including the other two. This Digitsu allows you to break the strongest of Genjutsu and look at the chakra pathways and Tenketsu, and will also allow you to see the way chakra is molded by a person. The Digitsu will first activate in desperation during a fight or inner conflict. Other part of this bloodline will be chakra wings. These wings will cost huge amount of chakra at first, but slowly it will be easy to use. These wings can be used to fly, protect and attack. Now there are some stages of this bloodline: Dragon Force, Second Origin and Third Origin. Second Origin. It is a stage activated due to power and chakra overload. But don't attempt, because you want to become more powerful, as this process could either kill you or could destroy your chakra pathways, so do not attempt it without an experienced medic around. Now let's talk about the features of Second Origin. This stage, once achieved, allow you to use two elements together with less chakra cost. Yes, it would mean you won't worry about overusing your chakra. You can also turn yourself into the element. That would mean a person with the affinity to lightning will be able to turn his body to that of lightning, allowing him to move at extreme speeds, similar with the other elements. Third Origin. It is similar to second stage, but is far more dangerous. It is said to be impossible to achieve and is said to affect chakra pathways in such a way that you may not be able to use chakra for a long time. Dragon Force. An important ability of the Dragon Slayers. It can be achieved in several ways. When you decide to eat a special substance that consists of every single element inside itself, or by eating Heaven's Flame, a special flame that could heal almost any to every injuries and wound, or by either defeating or slaying a dragon. Yes, the last one seems impossible to achieve. Before I end this letter, I have written the common moves that can be used by the Slayers. These moves can be used by the Slayer of every element, so you don't have to worry about not able to use them. At the end of the letter there is a sealing matrix that has been used to seal some scrolls of the said moves. You just need to push your chakra into it, similarly to this scroll. That was to be opened only to the Slayer of this bloodline. The seal matrix will only respond to yours chakra only, and the moves that are written will be exclusive to Slayer only, which would mean the words of that scroll would only be available to you. This is everything you need to know about your bloodline. Remember, do us proud, make the world yours, and rule the Sky Dragon Slayer. Natsu Drang Neil, Fire Dragon Prince, Minato and Kushin and Namikaze. As the Hokage read the whole letter, everybody's eyes keeps on getting wide with every single word he read, and they were downright shocked when they heard the names written at the end. They may have not known the Natsu guy, but he was a prince, but the name beneath them were very famous in the shinobi world. Naruto, eyes wide when understood what was written in the letter, was very close to shouting, but before he could do anything, Hokage decided to seal the room with silencing seals and told the ANBU to stand guard. Naruto looked confused as the Hokage barked the orders. After commanding the ANBU, the Hokage settles down and looks at the young Jinchuriki with a smile. You are more trouble, Naruto, the Hokage states as Naruto grins at him. Do you even know the amount of paperwork I will have now? Naruto looks confused at his words. Does me having this bloodline will cause problem to you? GG, Naruto asked worriedly. The Hokage smiled and shook his head in the negative. No, Naruto, in fact it is good that you have such an amazing and rare bloodline. The Hokage then looks at his paperwork and sighs. Except for the amount of paperwork now I have to do. Just like them, he thought as he looks at Naruto from the corner of his eyes and sees the two people behind him, one a blonde-haired man and other a red-haired woman, a grin plastered on their faces. Is he ready to know about them yet? He then shook his head and looks at the table where he saw another from out of the village to talk about the relationship between villages. Letter. I know if I told them about his bloodline now, Hokage thought, thinking about the council, they will force CRA onto him, and he may never find happiness because of the old coots in the council. I have to do something, but first he looks at Naruto again, and at the other letter again. Both of us need a vacation. Maybe he will be able to make friends outside the village, the Hokage thought while looking at Naruto's smiling face. Hey, Naruto, the third grabs his attention by calling him. What do you say? Want to come with me for a vacation? The grin on his face got bigger than before and was threatening to split his face in two. Really? The Hokage nodded at the childish enthusiasm of the child, and inside his mind 4 out of the 5 people were also smiling, looking at him. Where are we going? We are going, the Hokage starts as he lifts his hand with a letter in it to Suna, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Sunagakure no Sato, the professor, the god of shinobi, sensei of the Sannin, the 3 legendary ninjas and student of second Hokage, veteran of first, second and third great shinobi war. In his time he has seen many things, including bloodlines of different caliber. But this takes the cake. This bloodline, from what he read, was unique in every way. And on top of that it was written by a prince of fire dragon, the 4th Hokage, and his wife. He didn't even know that they had this kind of bloodline, and Naruto was extremely happy when he found that the 4th Hokage and his wife, which he now found out that he had a wife and how beautiful she must be to make his hero fall in love with her. Granted, it was unknown to the most of the population of Konoha, which in turn made her even more happy to know something others didn't know, had written a letter for him. The Hokage was annoyed that both of them hidden away a letter of this kind from him. What would happen if he never found about the scroll? It could fall in the wrong hands. Even if they won't be able to open it, they should not be this much careless, and they wrote a letter to their son hidden away from him that talked about a bloodline that has given him a headache. And not just any normal type bloodline like Uchiha's Sharingan and Hyuga's Byakugan. Hell, he would have loved it if he had Mokutan of the Shodai Hokage or the legendary Dijutsu Rinnegan like Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the father of ninjutsu. But no, they had to be like an Uzumaki, even if one of them was and one is, and this had given him a huge headache. He knew the council will know about him having eaten fire from one of the attack of the Chunin, and would likely want to know how he did it. He didn't need to worry about the Shinobi Council, and some of them were trusted by Naruto, including himself and his ANBU, so that means that they could read the letter but not the rest. And that was what was eating him. It seems that Minato had created some kind of seal that allow only a person with Naruto's bloodline and people who he may trust to see and read the words in the letter. And the only thing he knows is that not one of the civilian council will believe it if they found that he had some kind of bloodline. And if they do, I don't want to think about it. He thought I needed a vacation away from the council and the paperwork. That's why I came here. So think happy thoughts, happy thoughts. As much as he tried, he was unable to think just that. And the only thing that made the whole letter legit was the signature of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Namikaze and their stamp at the end. That was the only thing that could shut up the council and allow them to believe the words written in the letter. He knew that showing them the letter won't work because it really won't show anything to anybody else. He knew because he tried it by calling in his secretary, and by asking her if she could read the scroll, and he snorted at what she said. The scroll was empty. She said, the Hokage thought while holding the scroll. The amount of information in this scroll could make Kumo and Iwa kidnap him, just so they could research and have children that could refill their chakra by eating element. More so, Kumo. Iwa would likely to torture him before hit his teen. Now the bloodline itself, it would probably just make this bloodline more feared, respected and wanted. Naruto already has huge chakra reserves, given his heritage. But this bloodline also enhances his body, giving him heightened senses equal to or greater than Inuzuka clan. After he found out he could smell more people in the room and could also hear thumping of some kind, showing that he could also hear heartbeat while being extremely close to people, and also that there was someone else in the room. All the more reason to get out of there, and laying out some rules and giving most of the authority to the Shinobi Council except few, and made sure to tell them not to do anything if something regarding Naruto comes up. He also sent a letter to the Fire Lord telling him about going to Suna and telling him about whom currently has authority in the council. Should have waited to see the look on Danzo's face, handing out most of the power to the clans. Then him would surely get under his skin, Sarutobi thought with a snort. His eyesight was also enhanced, making him see things better than anyone else. Then the major and very unique part of the bloodline comes into play. He had seen many bloodlines in play, from Sharingan to Byakugan, Mokutan to Hayatan. Heck, even Kushina's chakra chain, while rare, was still a bloodline which could absorb chakra and could also protect her while in danger. He had heard of someone else that could absorb chakra but was an experiment of his student, just like Tenzo. There were several bloodlines that would be easy to comprehend and understand, but this is from another world totally. This unique bloodline will allow Naruto to eat the elements and protect him from it. Every single one of the bloodlines costs chakra. Every bloodline uses chakra, but in this you get to replenish the chakra you had wasted by just eating the elements, and you are ready to go at it. He knew that Naruto has fire affinity, and may also have another. He wasn't sure about other affinity that he may have. Not only that, but if he has more than one elements, then his bloodline allow him to combine those two elements to form a third subtype element. If he had and has affinity to either wind, water or earth, then he could use scorch, boil or lava release respectively. And the Dijitsu, Dragon Eye, from what he read, the Dijitsu was somewhat a combination of Sharingan and Byakugan. It didn't had Byakugan 360-degree field vision, or ability to copy jutsu of Sharingan, but what was provided was some of the abilities of both the bloodline combined. If this kind of bloodline was known before in Konoha, the clan that had this bloodline would be on same pedestal like Hyuga, Senju or Uchiha, and could be as dangerous as the old Uzumaki clan. A clan feared and respected more than the Senju or the Uchiha. It took a combined effort of 3 major villages and several smaller villages allied to them to destroy the Uzushiogakure, the land of the whirlpool. But even then they weren't able to completely annihilate them. They went back in their village to tell they had defeated the army of Yuzu that consisted mainly of the Uzumaki. But when asked about the village, they weren't able to go forth. Then the battlefield, every house, every home of the Uzushiogakure were covered in the seals that made impossible to enter them. He even sent Jiraiya there once, and even he, a seal master, was unable to understand those seal. That's why they sought to attack the home of Uzumaki and destroy them, and went back home with heavy losses and head hung in shame with the causalities among them extreme. And Uzumaki was a devious being, but combined with seals they were downright terrifying. In battle they could put a Nara to her wit's end. Another thing known about them that they are known to be very lively, and sometimes quiet, dense and idiotic and brave and brash, and many other things that includes their flippant attitude. For example, little Naruto, his surrogate grandson, is not only master prankster but have very short span of attention. He was just not able to get attention to things he considered boring, and also giving nickname to people just like Kushina. A fond smile graced his lips as remembered fond memories. They were lively and kind, but in battle they were ruthless and powerful. This bloodline must be kept a secret Hokage's side, and from what I think Danzo may already know bits about this and will surely try to get it. It's a good thing I sent him a letter to discuss things at later date, and if not met the consequences that will follow, Hokage then looked down at Naruto. He has decided to teach him how to read and write and basics alphabets. He would be able to read fluently, but his writing will take a long time to be actually readable. It was a 6-day trip to Sunagakure, and he has decided to spend at least 7 days there, and then return. While discussing about the letter the Kazekage sent, from what he read, the letter was talking about rerouting some of the mission that was sent by the Wind Daimyo to Konoha could be sent back to Sunagakure no Sado. He decided to use that as an excuse for getting out of the paperwork. Truthfully, there might be some form of paperwork, but that would pale in comparison to the paperwork back home. He stills cringed looking at the mountain of paper and cursed the yondaime, even if he respects the guy most, for taking the secret to paperwork with him to the grave. Sunagakure no Sado, the village hidden in the sand, the ninja village of the Wind Country on the border of the River Country, is the ally of Konoha. From what he had heard, the yondaime Kazekage, Sabuku no Raza, had used his youngest son and made him the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi. He was desperate to increase his military might and impressing the daimyo. But looking at the letter in his hand, the plan may have backfired. This was putting the Sunagakure council on the edge while putting the Kazekage on a tight spot. He is currently traveling to Suna to talk what he could work out with the Kazekage, and he bought the resident troublemaker and the resident prankster of Konoha with him. He let a sigh thinking of trouble that Naruto could create while they are on vacation, as he gladly put it. On the other hand, he may be able to make some friends in the other village. Back in Konoha he didn't have many friends or have any at all. Most of the civilians' family keeps their children away from him, and shinobi were mostly wary of him. Many from the clans have tried to adopt him, but after the mending of the civilian council they just stopped trying. The Uchiha clan would have loved to keep Naruto with them, and could have become his friends if you look at it, but allowing them his custody will put imbalance in power. Also he may develop their arrogance, which was a necessity in that clan. Same goes for the other clan, including their unique quirks. But mostly the clan heads and the shinobi close to Yondaime and his wife were hurt when they had to ignore Naruto in public. Mainly the Uchiha, after the Kyuubi attack. The Uchihas had been isolated and ridiculed behind their backs by the villager, as apart from Senju clan bloodline. Uchihas are the only clan with a recorded bloodline to control a bijou and suppress their chakra. To be sure they are not further isolated by the villager, they had to restrict themselves from making any contact with Naruto. The Hyuga didn't make, mostly due to their elder council, and same goes to the other clan fearing for the same treatment as that of the Uchiha clan. At first, after Naruto was born, there were assassination attempts on him, but as he grew they stopped. But now, on most of the days, Naruto was ignored and left about except for few drunks looking for justice. They just ignore his whole existence as he moves among them, and if he was right then it affected him more than anything else, as he didn't have most of the time. He is usually unable to visit Naruto, and except for Tochi and I am Ichiraku of the Ichiraku stand, nobody in the whole damn village acknowledges his existence. From what he understand correctly, it had affected Naruto little mind greatly, having nobody to accept, and acknowledging may have a very large effect on his mind, and he could any time turn to Kyuubi if this kept on happening. A child needs attention, he knew, as not having any positive attention could lead a child to depression, and from there on as he grows those thoughts could affect Naruto as whole, and him being the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi makes it more dangerous. He could just release Kyuubi on the village if it was to continue on. He knew that it was only his and the Ikaraku's along with his own ability to look at the good things that he is completely sane now, but for how long nobody knows. With the lack of seal masters in Elemental Nation, it would be nearly impossible to seal Kyuubi back, as not only they would lose the last Uzumaki, the only clan in which the Kyuubi could sealed without any backlash, and lack of seal masters to seal a being like Kyuubi. He looked down at Naruto. As he was studying the scroll he had given him after he taught him how to read, he had to admit that even after having his mother attitude, he also had his father mind. But still the Uzumaki attitude was still a dominant trait. It took quite some time to make him understand things because of his short attention span. He had to bribe him with ramen after they go back home if he studied properly, and learned how to read properly before reaching Suna. At first he wasn't worried, thinking it might take time for him to read properly, but looking to him now, it should damn impossible to learn things this quickly, and now he was crying imagining the big gaping hole he might have in his wallet when they go to Ichiraku ramen stand. Looking at Naruto, he had to let out a sigh. After he finished the letter, Naruto was ecstatic, mostly regarding the moves that were in the scroll, another incentive that he was willing to study so much. He was having his own moves exclusive alone to him. Any 6-year-old kid hoping to be a ninja will be happy to know there are moves only for him and could be used only by him and for Naruto. It was a dream come true, one of the reasons he was studying so hard. He already had access to chakra, something he learned from him after he was thrown out of the orphanage last year. And now for the whole time they were traveling, there had been 2 questions coming out of his mouth. When we will reach there, or can I now open that scroll? And truthfully these questions were getting on his nerves, and truthfully he was losing his patience with Naruto and the amused chuckle of his ANBU, which were hidden, and the 2 of his escorts, wearing ANBU pants and jounin vest, one having silver hair and mask over his face covering up to his nose, reading a orange-colored book, wearing his forehead protector over his right eye, and other guy with brown hair, wearing a bandana over his head and his forehead protector on back of his head and a saban in his mouth, looking amused at the scene. The mask-wearing person is the strongest jounin of the Konoha, Hatake Kakashi, named in the bingo book Copycat Kakashi, an A-ranked ninja who had a repertoire of over 1,000 jutsu in his arsenal, and the next person a Tokubetsu/special jounin Ganma Shirani, a shinobi fluent in using saban. Gigi Naruto whines again while using world-famous cute puppy dog eyes at the Hokage. Can I open the scroll with moves please? The Hokage let out a frustrated sigh as he tried to ignore the look Naruto was giving him. Don't look at it, just ignore it, damn it. How long did you think he could handle? Genma asked as he looked at the scene. Don't know. Kakashi looked amused at the scene, but I don't think for long, he pointed out as he looked at the Hokage. Hokage shot both of them a glare at their snickering. Naruto. Hokage states, why do you want to learn those techniques this early? Those techniques are for you, so why are you so impatient? He asks as Naruto for a moment dropped his mask of his happiness. He is sometime amazed at Naruto's mask and the amount and sadness behind those eyes. He quickly regained his mask back, putting on his famous grin as he looked towards the Hokage. I want to start my training for being ninja early. Naruto states, not only that but I also wants to be accepted by the people. I figured they would at least be kind to me if they know if I have this bloodline like they do with the weird white eyes people. And I can make friends if they know of things I could before. The Hokage could retort, also I could also protect myself if and when the masked guys are not around. Hokage looked at Naruto and sighed. Look Naruto. Hokage starts, I know that you want to learn things quickly but you must learn patience. I will allow you to learn 1 or 2 moves from the scroll but that's it. Also do not tell anybody that you have this bloodline. At Naruto's confused expression he continued, I don't want any harm befalling you Naruto. If people know that you have this bloodline they would try to kidnap you to get their hands on the bloodline. At this Naruto's confused expression turns pale but it turns into determination. All the more reason for you to learn things, Naruto. Hiruzen then took out the scroll with golden dragon scroll on it, then called Naruto as he opened the scroll and showing a pattern to Naruto and looked at the odd expression of Naruto at the design of the seal. Now Naruto. The Hokage starts, this seal is a storage seal. This seal is more complex than the regular storage seal because it is attuned to your chakra, only making it that nobody else from you could open this seal. To activate this seal you need to send your chakra into it. Understand? His nods, seeing that he understood it. He said further, now I want you to send some chakra into it. After moving beside his surrogate grandfather, Naruto sends a bit of his chakra into the seal, or tried to, because as he didn't have that much control he sent a burst of chakra into the seal. Results: a sudden power burst in the seal throws the another scroll out of the seal at an alarming speed. As it was kept vertical to the ground the scroll came out towards an unexpected Kakashi and hit him in the balls. Not able to dodge due to the surprise, Kakashi lays on the ground holding his groin area with absolute horror as Hiruzen and Genma along with the ANBU guards comes to the term what happened in just short amount of time as Naruto was laughing, hardly rolling on the floor. Now looking what has happened sent Genma into hysterics fit, and Hiruzen looking at the scene amusedly while trying to control himself from laughing, and failing miserably. The ANBU guards were downright laughing at Kakashi's misfortune. Serves him right for reading that smut in front of children in the open, muttered an ANBU in cat masks while snickering. Hiruzen looked amused at scene as he gazed at Naruto. This will be an interesting trip, the Hokage thought, most interesting trip indeed. Wind Nation, Sunagakure no Sato, Sabuku no Raza, the 4th Kazekage, also the person to have the Kekei Genkei or bloodline limit known as the magnet release, making it possible for him to use golden sand. He is a middle-aged person with brown reddish-black hair wearing Kazekage robe and dress. He let out a sigh thinking about his village and family. His village, the Hidden Sand Village, one of the 5 major villages, having an economic and financial crisis due to the lack of mission in the village. Most of the missions are sent to the Hidden Leaf Village by the Wind Daimyo, increasing the feeling of resentment in the council towards Konoha. Moreover, he has been pushed hard to increase rules and strictness in the academy to improve the quality of ninja made in Suna. This led to drop in the number ninjas they usually made, also due to the lack of proper finances that was needed. He sealed a bijou into his own son, just so to increase the military might. Now for his family. The Sabuka family was happy once. 5 years back, he already had 2 children, 1 daughter and 1 son. His wife went into labor and was about to give birth to their 3rd child. But to increase the military strength, he decided to seal Ichibi no Shikaku into his own son. Truthfully, my worst decision, Kazekage admitted. Something went wrong during the sealing, leading to the death of his wife Kurara. After that, everything south. He had to keep his daughter and older son away from their younger son, who was living with Yashimaru, brother of his wife, due to their own safety. As he was not a seal master, he didn't know what to do. So he decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and sent few letters to Konoha regarding the problems of both his family and village, but even from there was no answer. making the feeling of resentment stronger in the council. Even he was starting to lose hope but sent a last letter to Konoha, one last time. He wanted his family to be together, but it was proving more futile as even he was not able to make any contact with any of his children as the load of the work kept on increasing. There were times that some of the ninjas were killed by Gaara's sand, as Shikaku decided to protect his host from any harm. One of the reasons he decided to keep Temari and Kankuro away from him. He didn't know when Shikaku, not his son mind you, would decide that Gaara's sibling were a threat to him, also the village. The village was downright terrified of Gaara, and there were sometimes attempts on his life made it more difficult for him to be accepted by the village. He only trusted Yashimaru to keep him sane. Also the damned Tanuki didn't allow his son to sleep. These things were making his head sore in pain. As he was thinking, he felt a presence in the room. Already knowing who was it, he spoke in an authoritative voice, "What is Baki?" In front of him now stood one of his most trusted jounin. He was wearing typical ANBU clothes and a jounin vest. "Lord Kazekage Baki starts. We have received a word from Konoha," as he said that there was a light of hope in the eyes of Kazekage and nodded for him to continue. "The Hokage has left the village, and will be arriving in 5 days with his guards that include Jounin Kakashi Hatake and Special Jounin Genma Shirani along with one extra guest." At the extra guest, Kazekage raised an eyebrow. "Do you know anything about the extra guest, Baki?" Kazekage asks. "Yes, Baki starts. Another guest is Naruto Uzumaki." At the name Uzumaki, the Wind Shadow looked surprised. "Interesting," Kazekage states. "I don't believe that you know about his appearance of this Naruto." At the negative, he received the Kazekage's side while looking out of the window. "It's alright, you are dismissed, Baki," the Kazekage states as Baki leaves in Wind Shushin. As he looks out the window, his mind on the last Uzumaki he had known, and with whom she was seen. This will be the most interesting meeting, he thought, looking towards the Sabuku estate. The Kazekage strolled through his village wearing his kage robes and had his 3 children were walking behind him with the guards following them with Baki and Pakura. His eldest daughter Temari and son Kankuro were walking right behind him, keeping distance from their youngest sibling Gaara, who was walking with their uncle Yashimaru, who was currently the only person Gaara trusted. He sighed thinking about his family and the drift that is now between them. He cannot blame his older children as they were doing what he told them, not to go near him. That was the command. But even then both of them tried to make at least some kind of relationship with Gaara. He wasn't able to form any kind of bond with any of his children. He was mostly covered in the council, so he didn't have time for anything else, and after the death of Karura, there was not a single family moment he could hope for. He again looked at his children and sighed and looked around. Most of the people were scared of Gaara. Even some of the ninjas and the roosters were terrified of him except for him, Yashimaru, Baki, Pakura, Ebizo, Chio and Temari and Kankuro. Currently these were the only people that were not scared of him. Even Temari and Kankuro were not. They were just wary of him, afraid they are not. He cannot blame them for that. After all, when it's about survival, even an ass would have an enlightenment. Pakura was what was the word again? A softer for young children, and Baki, well, he was Baki. Now Lady Chio is in the council and the only one he would look towards for advice. Not only that, but unlike some council members, she at least was humble and considerate, and one of the reasons the council has not issued execution order for Gaara behind his back. Along with Ebizo, head of the Suna Council, they helped to protect Gaara as much as they could, not only for the village military, even if that was the only reason that the council listened to, but also for him to lead a normal life in the village. The brother-sister duo Chio and Ebizo are known as the honored siblings, 2 of the only people he trusted more than anybody in the council apart from Baki. All of them were heading towards the east entrance of the village, where they will greet the Kage of Sunagakure and his escorts from where they would be coming from the border of river country. He looked towards the gate and saw that Lady Chio and Councilman Ebizo were already there. He greeted them, as Chio greeted him back and then turned towards with confused expression. Ebizo also looked confused and looked towards the Kazekage for answers. "I brought them here to teach them about formal meetings and different politics in other villages," he told them, "and for them to learn about official matters. Also for them to meet Uzumaki." Kid Raza thought while looking at the distance. Ochio said, "I can't fault you there for teaching your children things bit earlier," and looked towards the 3 children with a kind smile. "Good morning, you 3. "Good morning, Honorable Grandmother Chio and Grandfather Ebizo," Temari and Gaara said, and looked at her with smiles. Gaara at first looked hesitant, but after a quick nudge from Yashimaru he also greeted them. "Good morning, Honorable Grandmother Chio." He then turned towards Ebizo, Grandfather Ebizo. Both Ebizo and Chio sighed looking at Gaara. Both of them knew about Gaara's lack of social interaction. He only interacted with Yashimaru and it was wholly affecting the whole family. So when will they reach here? Ebizo asked as he looked at Raza. For the time the Hokage will reach here. They will reach in few minutes if what I was told, Raza replied, and looked and saw few figures making their way towards the gate. Before he could say anything, a Chunin came forward. Lord Kazekage pausing a bit to look at Kazekage as he nodded for him to continue. The third Hokage and his escorts are heading towards the gate, and he looked towards the Kazekage as he raised a brow at but there is a child in them, and from what we could see it looks like they were ambushed on their way, and Kakashi Hatake was holding the child in his clutches in his hands, and other escort also looks harmed from what we could see. At the explanation, the eyes of Kazekage and the elders widened, as nobody had once dared to attack the Hokage and his escort. His first thought was to think that they must be some bandit, and second was that some IWA ninjas or nuke ninja were the one that has attacked them, but he left the thought alone and looked at his children. They had a look of awe and confusion. He then looked in front as the figures were now becoming clear. Raza looked at the Hokage as he looked at the Hokage and saw that him and his guard a tired look on their face, and the ANBU guard who were supposed to be hidden were walking behind the Hokage, Ginma and Kakashi, and had several burn marks and weird writing on their masks. One weasel mask was bright orange. Who the hell wears an orange mask? His eyes then turned towards the special Jounin Ginma Shiranui. He looked as he went to hell and back. There were several tears in his clothes and his left sleeve was torn off while looking, and he looked closer. Were those burn marks on his pants? More specifically, burn marks on the pants were near the crotch area, and not just any burn mark. It was as if somebody had decided to use that region to practice Katan Jutsu. He heard giggling behind him and turned to see Temari. Kankuro and Pakura were giggling while pointing towards Ginma. Even Gaara was smiling while he gazed at them, and there were amused expression on the faces of Baki, Chio and Ebizo. His eyes then turned towards one Hatake Kakashi, one of the strongest and most promising ninja produced by Konoha, the student of Yondaime, who was the student of Jiraiya the Sannin, who in turn was the student of third Hokage that was leading the group, who was the student of second Hokage. Similar to Ginma, he was having several tears in his clothes, and what interested him most was the child Hatake was holding in his hands. Too bad he wasn't able to see his face as he was being held. Showed his butt in the front, while his other hands were on his hips as if he was holding something there. Looking here, Temari and Kankuro were laughing wholeheartedly as Gaara snickered quietly while keeping one hand on the teddy he walks with and other on his mouth. Finally, Raza's eyes turned towards the Hokage. He looked tired and wet. His kage robes were damp and were dripping with water, and a deep frown on his face. From head to toe water was dripping from him. Kazekage, along with people besides him, had several thought, but one topped all. He decided to have a dip in the river with his clothes on. While looking at Hokage, his three children were now outright laughing. Even some of the genins were trying their hardest to hold their laugh, but were ultimately failing. Behind him, even Chio was giggling, but he can't even let out a snort to show his amusement. Raza let out a sigh while looking down. Sometimes he regret the time when he decided to become the Kazekage. He then lifted his eyes and glared at the assembled people around him. Everybody did shut up, but there was still some occasional giggling coming from the shadows as he let out a frustrated sigh. The Hokage and Co. reached their destination and looked at the assembled people who came to greet them. Most of them were either giggling and tried to stop it but were failing miserably. Truthfully, he was regretting the time when he thought about taking Naruto with him here. He then looked as Kazekage came in front and looked towards him. "Good afternoon, Lord Hokage. I hope that your journey may have went well." There was a complete silence as Raza said that. Hiruzen's eyes were twitching dangerously as he said that. Behind him he could see that many were trying to hold in their laughter. What he couldn't believe was that Raza did ask that question. Looking at him, he saw a mortified look on Raza's face, showing that even he couldn't believe what he said. Chio, Baki and Ebizo were giving him a look that said worst joke ever and shook their heads. But before anybody could speak or say, a childish and confident voice spoke up. "You bet it is." The Kazekage looked down to see a blonde-haired kid, maybe 6-year-old, with 3 whisker marks on each side of his cheeks. He was wearing black short pants and white t-shirt with orange spiral drawn in the back. He heard someone taking deep breath behind him and turned to see the stupefied looks of Chio and Ebizo. He cannot blame them. The eyes and that hair could not be easily forgotten. And even he was surprised, and with that expression, and his suspicion was complete. He knew who he was looking at, and even he was surprised, but it at least solved the mystery of the death of Kyubi. He looked towards Hokage and saw that he was surprised, and his escorts had a look of pure horror on their faces. Kakashi slowly turned towards the hand he was holding Naruto, and his face turned blue as he saw that Naruto was missing from his hands. Temari and Kankuro and Gaara were looking shocked and awed that someone has the guts to show up in front of Kazekage and talk so casually. Most of the assembled people were just downright confused as to who this child was. For Naruto, he just wanted to play, and looking at the children behind the weird guy wearing robes, he was thinking if they would want to play with him, but he needed to give proper greetings to the elder first. The old man had decided to tell him this, so that was what he was doing. "Hi," Naruto said from his place. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Who are you, weird guy?" And who are? Before he could say anything further, Kakashi decided to close his mouth and pick him up. "I'm so sorry, Kazekage-sama, about Naruto. He is just kid." As he was saying this, his pants that he was wearing slowly fell down, showing his red boxers with duck picture on it. Kakashi felt a gentle breeze on his legs as he took into the expression of the ninjas and family assembled to greet them. He looked down to see that his pants finally fell down because both of his hands were now holding Naruto. His face turned redder than the ripe tomatoes as the whole crowd, including Hokage, Ginma, and the A and B guards and the people from Suna, including the Kazekage and council members, burst out laughing at one embarrassed Hatake. "Kakashi, I've never been humiliated so much in my short life," he thought while hiding his face, which was already hidden behind a mask. After a while, Hokage rained on his laughter as Kakashi let down Naruto and shot a glare at him as he pulled his pants back at their original position. Meanwhile, Naruto was snickering at the side. "Kazekage-dano, thank you for greeting and welcoming us." And Suna the Hokage bowed to the Kazekage to show his respect, and in turn the Kazekage also bowed to him. "It is our honor of welcoming you here, Hokage-dano." He then motioned towards his children and Chio and Ebizo. "These are my children, Temari, Kankuro and Gaara, and you already know about the honored siblings Chio and Ebizo." The Hokage gave a kind smile towards the three and bowed to show his respects towards the brother-sister duo. "On the behalf of Sunagakure no Sato Council and Sabako family, we welcome you to our village Sunagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the winds." Few minutes later, Hotel Desert Oasis. After the greeting, the Hokage asked the Kazekage if he could lead them towards the hotel, to which he agreed and led them to their hotel where they would be staying for the rest of their time. As they were on the way, Naruto made quick friends with the three children, well, more so with Gaara. For some reason Gaara's eyes remind him of himself. He and Gaara hit it off greatly. Even if he didn't talk much, he has been asking old man to let him go and play with the three of them. But he was busy talking with the weird guy with the robe and hat, but with the kanji of wind. He also saw that the people around them were looking at the two with respect, and then they were glaring. At first he thought they were glaring at him, but he noticed that instead of him they were glaring at Gaara. "He is being treated the same way I've been treated back in Konoha." At that he made sure to make friends with him. Naruto also made friend with Temari and Kankuro. With them were walking to very old brother and sister duo. He thought that they were as old man Hokage. The grandma had a band around her head as her hair was done in a bun. Old man had her head covered in bandages for some reason. They both were wearing black kimonos. Behind them were walking three more ninjas apart from the other that came with them. One was wearing jounin vest with his half face was covered from the cloth that was wrapped around his head and forehead protector on it. Other was a woman with brown hair and her eyes trained on the four children, making sure that they don't cause any problem for the two Kages. And the last person was walking close to Gaara with a kind smile on his face, wearing a chunin vest. All the way to the hotel, Naruto looked around curiously, taking in the sight. The place was very different from Konoha. It was in the midst of desert, so most of the houses were in the shape of dome. Also, he cannot see any greenery in this village. No tree, no grass, no lake. Heck, he can't even see a flower any here except on the windows of the houses there he could see. Even then it was rare. He could children goofing around and playing, and after seeing he had half mind to leave from here and poly with them, but Gigi told him not to go anywhere without his permission or without Kakashi-sensei or Genma-sensei. After reaching their destination, the Kazekage, the strongest ninja in the Suna from what he was told, called for medics to check on the group, to which the old man was grateful for. "I thank you for the hospitality that you have shown, Lord Kazekage," the Hokage said as he told Kakashi to take Naruto to freshen up after the medics were done patching him up. "It was nothing, Lord Hokage," the Kazekage replied. "As the gust of Suna, we must show proper hospitality to our host." For a moment all of them were silent before Raza spoke again. He certainly looks just like his dad, he said, then looked at the place where Naruto went to as Hiruzen looked at him in surprise with a touch of his mother in the face and attitude. So he used his own son as the sacrifice, huh? Hiruzen composed himself as Raza's children and the Jounin around him looked at him confused except for the honored siblings as the Hokage of Konoha narrowed his eyes at him. He certainly does, and yes he did, Hiruzen replied, and then whole room went silent again. If you don't mind me asking, how did you figure out his heritage? As he asked this, Raza and the honored siblings looked at the Hokage if he seriously asked the question, the same look he got from the Shinobi Council when he asked them the same damn question. But the Kazekage replied to satisfy the curiosity of Hokage. He had the eyes and hair of his father. He started his facial structure is like combination between his father and mother. Also from the way he talked I guarantee that he has the no shit talk back attitude of his mother. At that the Hokage nodded, whereas the Suna natives were confused and shocked at the language he used. And I see that he has started to rub off on you too, the Hokage replied, then continued before the Kazekage could give him the retort, I request you to keep his heritage and the knowledge of sacrifice as a secret. Lord Kazekage, the shinobi of the Suna widened their eyes at the word sacrifice, whereas the children looked confused at the talk that was going on. I know about the troubles and problems it would create by bringing him here, but we needed that. Also, he currently doesn't his status, so please refrain from talking about it. The Kazekage and the siblings raised their eyebrows at that. We shall honor that wish, Lord Hokage, Ebizo said as he looked at Hokage, as the Kazekage looked at the elder and nodded for him to continue. But don't you think he should know about his status and position he holds in your village? I know that, Ebizo Dano Hokage replied, but the fact is after the Kyuubi attack our village defenses was very low. If words about his heritage was let out, the amount of assassins after him would increase drastically. As he said that, many of the widened their eyes, the Kazekage, Ebizo, and Chio in realization and the rest in confusion. Before they could even talk further, a blonde blur came out of the bathroom very fast towards the Hokage and stopped in front of the Hokage, now wearing a black and orange strip t-shirt and red shorts and sandals. Hey old man, can I go out to play now? He asked with barely restrained enthusiasm, and before the Hokage could say anything he continued, you said that I could get to play with kids here, so can I? He said as the Hokage rubbed his temple in frustration. Okay fine, Hokage replied as Naruto cheered, but wait for Kakashi to go with you, but it will take time. Naruto whines as he looks at Hokage. Before Hokage could say anything further, Kazekage interjected, if you don't mind Lord Hokage, little Naruto could go with my children as they would be escorted by two of my ninjas. Raza pointed at Pakura and Yashimaru as they stepped forward, and Kakashi could join them afterwards, and meanwhile we could discuss some of the things. As he said that, the Hokage was about to refuse at first but changed his mind as Naruto begged to let him go out to play till he caved in. Alright, but I want you to not cause any trouble, the Hokage said. Have I ever caused any trouble to you, old man? Naruto replied with innocence, as Hokage looked at him with a deadpan expression. He then went towards Kazekage children and asked them to show him around and play with him. Come on, Gaara, Naruto said, and then motioned for the others to follow him, but before he could go any further, Temari stopped him. Oi, she started, do you even know where you are headed to? Naruto stopped in his track as he looked back at her with a sheepish grin and rubbing the back of his head. You are an idiot. As she said this, Naruto gained a tick mark on her forehead. Hey, who are you calling idiot? You, who else? Stupid. I am not stupid. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. Ha, you admitted it, Temari said in victory as she pointed at Naruto. And before he could say anything further, she continued, now follow me and I will show you around, she said / commanded. Hey, Kankuro yelled from behind, who made you the leader? I am the leader as I am the older one. And before he could retort, Gaara interjected, I thought we were supposed to show him around. Temari and Kankuro looked at their younger brother as he joined the conversation. This is the first time that he had spoken anything to them at his will. They were surprised at first but chalked it up and nodded their head. You are right, Temari said, and being the oldest one among the three of us, I will be the tour guide for him. She took both Gaara and Naruto hands and led them outside, with Kankuro trailing, baying, muttering about older sisters and how unfair it is for them to use their age as leverage over younger siblings. Pakura and Yashimaru followed them, one giggling at the conversation and other smiling at the scene, as this was the first time Gaara has joined a conversation. The Kages and the rest of the elders and shinobi looked at the children and smiled. Kazekage was even more surprised when he saw a smile grace Gaara's face as Temari led them outside. This is the first time I have seen Gaara smile. Kazekage spoke as looked at his son's back as the Hokage looked at him. That little guy sure knows how to make someone smile. Hokage nodded at that word as knew that even in the worst time and troubles Naruto and little Konohamaru were the only who were able to make him smile. Now we should talk about the ambush and attack against you on your way here. At these words Hokage looked confused. Ambush? XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX to give Naruto a tour with Temari leading them and Kankuro and Gaara giving their own inputs, and some place were described by Pakura and Yashimaru. They led him to several shops, but to his dismay there were no ramen shops around here. How these people don't have the food of gods here. While they were moving around, Naruto learned one thing about them. Just like him, they didn't have any friends and many of the children are afraid of them or Gaara. He didn't know, but the adults were glaring at Gaara with the same hatred and hostility as they glared at him. He wanted to ask but refrained from it. They then went to the playground where they played a game of tag, which they learned from Yashimaru. Both of them were now a few moments away from the children as they looked for any sign of threat, and then turned their gazes back at the four of them. You know, this is the first time I have seen them this happy, Pakura said as he looked at the four of them playing around. Yashimaru looked at them and nodded his head. You are right, Pakura, he replied. All of them seemed genuinely happy, and from what I gathered from the conversation, the Naruto kid also doesn't seem to have many friends, as he also is a Jinchuriki. Pakura then let out a sigh and spoke again. But from what I don't understand is why the heritage of the little guy. He must be from an important family if it is needed to hide his heritage. Yashimaru said, I don't think we need to worry about that, as Lord Kazekage seems to know about it. As they were talking, they noticed a child walking towards the four of them, and both were now ready to take action. Remembering the previous encounter of civilian children with Gaara, and were ready to intervene but stopped as Naruto waved at him and walked towards him. Hey, Naruto waved at the new kid that was heading towards them. Do you want to play with us? He asked as the new guy smiled at him and headed towards them but stopped in midway as he looked who was standing behind the whiskered blonde. The color from the child face drained quickly. Hey, you okay? Naruto asked him. What? Monster, the child yelled as he quickly ran back to where he came from. Naruto had a confused look on his face, which then turned into a frown. What was his problem? Naruto asked to no one in particular as Gaara head came down. I am sorry, Gaara said as he looked down as Naruto looked back at him with a frown. Even Kankuro and Temari looked back at them with frown and worry etched on their faces. Huh? Naruto looked at him in confusion. What are you sorry for, Gaara? Slowly sand started swirling around Gaara as it started to rise slowly. Temari and Kankuro slowly started backing away from them and looked towards Gaara. Pakura and Yashimaru prepared themselves for any sort of problem and were on move. Yashimaru sighed, already knowing what was going through his head, and he finally found a friend, he thought while moving towards them. Life's not fair for the little guy. They were now awaiting for Naruto's reaction, and they were hoping for a good reaction. Awesome! Naruto yelled with stars practically shining in his eyes. Gaara looked up to see that the first friend he made was not running away while screaming his head off. Can you teach me how to do that? Gaara looked confused after hearing that statement. You are not afraid of me? He asked while looking at Naruto. Why would I be? It is a cool technique. Can you teach me? Naruto asked again. Gaara shook his head in negative. No, that is something that only I could do. Naruto looked a bit downcasted but quickly reverted back to his normal self. Oh well, I bet I could learn load of my own techniques. He then turned towards Kankuro and Temari. Can you do something like that? He asked them. No, but I am learning to use wind chakra, Temari said. You also have wind chakra, Naruto says while looking at Temari. I have that too. Really, can you use it? Yes, Naruto said with pride while bumping his fist on his chest. Can you do a wind jutsu? She asked again as Naruto nodded. Can you do one now? She asked him with stars in her eyes as Naruto looked a bit weirded out by that. I could, but old man told me not to do it, Naruto said as Kankuro snorted. Yeah, I think you don't even know how to make a hand sign, he said while pointing at Naruto. I could, Naruto said. No, you couldn't, Kankuro shot back. Stop trying to act cool. Yes, I could, and I will prove it to you, Naruto said and looked around until his eyes landed on a lone bench standing in the corner of the ground. Looked closely to the bench as all the present turned their attention towards the bench, as they were watching it. As Naruto looked at the bench and took a long breath and puffed his cheek. What is he doing? Were the general thoughts of the ninjas and Kazekage children and some of the passerby. Wind dragons roar, Naruto yells as bursts of vacuum air came out of his mouth as only splinters of wooden pieces of the bench remains. The blast didn't stop there as it went behind and destroyed a vendor and made some of the civilians fly with the blast. Naruto looked at the destruction he caused and turned back with a sheepish grin and took in the expression of his friends, and totally it didn't disappoint him. Temari and Kankuro had their jaws on the ground, whereas Pakura, Gaara and Yashimara looked surprised and awed at the destruction, and confused at the name. Nice, Pakura said as she took in the destruction caused by Naruto. What was that move called again, she asked. It was a move exclusive to me, Naruto said, getting wide eyes from the jounin, but it was still incomplete, he said while looking a bit sad. Pakura and the rest widened their eyes as they took in the word incomplete. What do you mean incomplete? Temari and Kankuro yelled. What else does it mean? Naruto said. It means that I cannot use it to his full strength, as he said that the wide eyes got more wide and would have fell out of their sockets if it was possible, but alas it's not. Naruto then turned to look at Pakura. What can you do? He asked while looking at her. Can you do a fire jutsu? He asked. Fire jutsu, Pakura said. Kid, I know a lot more than fire jutsu, and even have something better than fire jutsu. She then focused chakra as a ball of fire formed on her hand. The ball was bright yellow in color, with fire moving around it. Behold, she said, this is my technique. Shikuden slash, or otherwise known as scorch release. It is a elemental bloodline limit, which her explanation was stopped as Naruto took in a breath and started inhaling the ball until nothing was left. Thank you for the meal, Naruto said as he let out a burp. The natives of Suna had their jaws on ground, including Gaara, and Pakura looked stupefied at the scene. You ate my scorched ball, Pakura said while pointing at Naruto, and looked at Yashimara. He ate my scorched ball. Yeah, I can eat fire, Naruto said. He could have said anything further. His face turned blue and he fell on the ground holding his stomach. Naruto! Gaara and Temari yelled as Naruto's face became pale. What is happening to him? Yashimaru and Pakura went to check on him as his face shows that he was in pain. Yashimaru, take the children back to the hotel, Pakura commanded, picking Naruto up. I will carry Naruto as both of them sushin to the hotel. At the hotel. So the reason the condition you arrived in was due to a training accident that happened while you were trying to teach Naruto some jutsu? Kazekage asked for confirmation as Hokage kept on telling him it was not an ambush, but he was not believing. Nope. It was not possible for a child to use a jutsu that could hand out the damage that they showed. For some reason, it seems unlikely that an accident could land you in water. Gives two of your escort so much damage, including destroying the pants of one of your jounin, and resulted in a NBU guard's mask in orange. Oh, that was a prank. A prank. Yes, a prank. From the time the Kazekage asked about the Hokage about the ambush, the Hokage told them about their travels while omitting some of the parts as much as he could so that things would not seem so weird, but even after the explanation, as the whole situation seems very ludicrous. Lord Hokage, Kazekage stated, I think there must be something you are omitting. Cause if it was an ambush, I will request you to tell us, as it is not only for your security but also for the fact that happened near our border, so we must know anything suspicious. You are right, Lord Kazekage. I've omitted few things, Hokage starts, as they are not the things that one must speak openly about, and I hope to keep that a secret for now, but I am telling you the truth. We were not ambushed on your way here. Kakashi then took the liberty of entering the room. Kakashi, I was thinking, when will you come? Hokage said while looking at him. Now I want you to find Naruto, and make sure he doesn't causes any trouble. Don't you think you are thinking too much, Lord Hokage? Chio said, I mean, it just been half an hour. What possibly could he do to cause trouble in such a short amount of time? Truthfully, Lady Chio Hiruzen starts, if somebody let him out of sight for more than 5 minutes, then it is sure he is causing trouble, and every time he does that he gives me a new headache. Surely you are exaggerating a bit, Lord Hokage. Ebizo said, he is just a kid, and kid causes troubles if they don't. What's the childhood is for? You are right, Ebizo, Dano Hokage said, but I don't want Suna to become a place of his. Before he could say anything further, the shinobi felt a presence entering the room as children of Kazekage entered the room with a frantic expression. Even Gaara had a look of concern behind him. Yashimura had a frown on his face before he could ask anything. Pakura entered the room cradling Naruto in her arms as he held his stomach. Every member present turned to her in question, but before she could say anything, Hokage questioned her. What happened? Hokage asked her while looking at her with narrowed eyes. Theorio playing. It showed him scorched ball, he did. Before she could continue, Hokage raised his hands. Take deep breath, and then tell what happened, he commanded as Pakura took a deep breath. He ate my scorched ball, Pakura said as the rest of the Suna natives looked bewildered at her. This is not a time for a joke, Pakura. Kazekage said harshly. Say truthfully what actually happened. She is telling the truth, Lord Kazekage Yashimaru interjected. He ate her scorched ball. Raza looked at both of them and rubbed his forehead. Yes, father, we were there when it happened. She was explaining her technique as he ate the ball that was in her hand, Temari said as Gaara and Kankuro nodded their heads. Kazekage sighed and was ready to apologize to the Hokage, but he stopped as the third started talking again. I understand, Hiruzen said with a sigh as the Suna natives turned to him in surprise for believing such excuse. You have the elemental bloodline of Scorch release, am I right? Pakura nodded her head as she looked at the Hokage with surprise. And I am correct, it is the combination of wind and fire, right? He asked as Pakura nodded. Hiruzen then let out another sigh and looked at the children and smiled at them. He then turned towards Kakashi and handed him Naruto. Good news, nothing has happened to him and everything is normal, Hokage said as he looked at the others who were literally looking at him with surprise at seeing the nonchalant expression of him, as if it was normal for a person to eat elements. But Kazekage asked something else that was going through his head. What is the bad news? He asked. The bad news is he will be regurgitating, he replied. Kakashi, please take him outside at the balcony, and do point his head towards the sky. The Suna natives looked confused as he turned towards them. Well, Lord Kazekage, you wanted to know what happened. Well, now you have the front row tickets. Well, sorry to ask you this, but why would a 6-year child regurgitating be something interesting? Lord Hokage Kazekage asks as his face contorts in disgust. You are saying this now, but you are in for a surprise, Hokage says as suddenly Naruto let out a scream and just few minutes later a huge torrent bright yellow and red flames shoots out of his mouth up in the sky. The Suna natives in the room were surprised, but the below every siblings were scared and frightened. Within few minutes the hotel was surrounded by shinobi and kunoichi. The ANBU quickly surrounded the Kazekage. The whole village could see the flames as it reached its peak. After a few minutes the flames died down as Naruto loses his consciousness. The children of Kazekage looked worried and somewhat scared. Don't worry, he just has chakra exhaustion, Hokage states as Kakashi came with Naruto in his hands. Congratulations, Lord Hokage. You now have a new bloodline, Kakashi says with an eye smile as Hiruzen grew a tick mark on his head. What was that, Lord Hokage? Raza asked the Hokage while looking Naruto. That, Lord Kazekage, that is his bloodline, the bloodline of a dragon. In the room that has been provided for the Konoha natives, Naruto peacefully slept in the bed as it was the first time that he had a bed to sleep on. In orphanage the matron would throw him in a room with no bed and would sometimes even beat him. Because of that he started to run off into the forest and sleep on a tree. He learned to climb the trees and before that he used to sleep at the forest ground before crying himself to sleep. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, gazed at the peaceful smile that graced his lips as he slept in the comfortable, and smiled himself as he patted his head. You are more trouble than anyone would hope for, Naruto, he said as he remembered what happened after he opened the scroll of moves that was for Naruto. Flashback 4 days back, in Tanzaku Town. It's been an hour after the unsealing of the moves scroll for Naruto. The opening of the scroll was grand as Naruto and Genma were on the floor laughing with several of the ANBU behind them as one Kakashi Hatake massaged his precious region that made him a man. Hiruzen rubbed his nose as he looked at the scene. He then coughed in his hands to get the attention as they held in their laughter, but the sound of snickering were still coming out. I think it's time we look into the scroll that has been left for Naruto, the Hokage said, and then he commanded his shinobi to take position to make sure nothing harms Naruto. As he was about to open the scroll, Naruto frowns before he could open the scroll. Why do you stop, Naruto? He asks as Naruto turns his head at him. I was wondering, old man, he starts as he looks at the aged Hokage, if I have a bloodline, and somebody left a scroll specifically for me, then shouldn't I have parents also? His words got several people nervous around him, as the Hokage decided to tell him the truth. Yes, you did, Naruto, the Hokage starts and continued before he could ask questions, but they died during the Kyuubi attack. Naruto was downcasted at the news but quickly asked another question. Do you know who they were, old man? He asked again, and was happy and surprised when the old man nodded his head, but before he could ask who they were, Hokage said again, I cannot tell you now, Naruto. It was their last wish for you to live a normal life and also to protect you. They were ninjas of highest caliber. Shinobi like them were hard to come by, and because of that they made many enemies in and out of the village. They knew when they were dying that if anybody found out you were their son before you could protect yourself, your life would be in more danger, hence they made it their last wish. But don't worry, I have their last words safely with me that will be given to you when you reach the age of 16 or the rank of Chunin or Jounin. as he said that the determination in Naruto's eyes came back full force. Now then, why don't we open the scroll that has been left for you? Naruto nodded his head and turned towards the scroll. Naruto applied some chakra into the scroll as a sound of click was heard into it. The scroll itself was red and had a dragon head drawn on it. As he opened the scroll, the Hokage came behind so that he could also read what was in that scroll. Hello, reader. If you have opened this scroll, then you have decided to learn the moves of a dragon slayer. But before we do that, let me give you a brief history and some pointers of us. Consider it a history lecture of your bloodline. This bloodline, unlike in some cases, doesn't originate from god or demon. It comes from dragon, as the name suggests. But how does this bloodline come to be? Well, here is your answer. A long time ago, when dragon lived in the world and traveled through the sky, terrorizing people that lived on earth, they will attack the villages and cities and empires to kill and eat. As the people who were reading the letter widens their eyes at the statement that was written in the letter and looked at each other, and went back to reading that letter. But one of them, one dragon, was not satisfied. The razing of villages, destruction of cities and downfall of empires, didn't completely satisfy him. This was the Dragon King, the king of dragons, Balerion. It was said that this dragon was the strongest dragon, and could use pure energy. One day, he and several other dragons went to destroy a village that they saw, but to their surprise the human of the village fought back. Granted, the attempt was futile, but they tried and it impressed the dragons that attacked them. The dragons destroyed the village, but the Balerion didn't find any satisfaction again. The people reading the letter now had a sad expression, thinking of the lives and death that would have occurred in the village. When they were resting in the village, the Dragon King heard the sound of sniffling. He went towards the source to find a little child sobbing in front of the burning house. There were several children there crying. Balerion landed in front of the child and asked what he was doing, to which he replied that his parents and brother were in the house and they died when they attacked. Balerion looked at the children and turned to his fellow dragon and asked them what they could, to which the dragons didn't have any answer to. The Dragon King then turned back to the children on the road as they were looking at the dragons in wonder and fear. For some reason Balerion asked him a question that not a single dragon or human would have thought he would ask. He asked what he will do if someone gives him the power to stop the dragon. The child replied that he will use that power to protect people with the power. The Dragon King was surprised and asked why won't he use the power to kill every single dragon or to rule the world, to which the child replied, I don't want to kill people whether they are human or dragon. I don't want everybody to hurt like us. The dragons were surprised, but what surprised them the most was when the dragon told them that he will train the child and making him the first dragon slayer. And after that several other dragons adopted children, making them slayers. But there were those too who didn't like what the Dragon King and other dragons were doing and decided to go against the king. And soon a war broke out between dragons, as the dragons who trained the slayers came out victorious in the war. But even then, in the midst of the slayers there were those who turned evil, and slowly the amount of dragon and their slayers declined until Natsu Dragneel, am one of the last dragon slayer with 6 other who are my friends, fighting against the last Dragon King, the Black Dragon Acnologia. Now that the history of the Dragon Slayer is completed, let me tell you a little bit more about your bloodline so that you may know everything necessary about your bloodline. As Naruto read this, he groaned as the adults all rolled their eyes at his expression. Now I know this thing seems boring, I myself still think that, but even I won't argue that these lessons, unlike old boring lectures, is more important. You might be thinking there are only 5 elements that a Dragon Slayer can use, then you are dead wrong. A Dragon Slayer could be of any type. You could be a fire/flame, earth/stone, water/aqua, sky/wind, lightning/thunder. These are the general elements that a dragon slayer could be of, and then there are these: venom/poison, crystal, metal/iron, wood, ice, lava, shadow, light and darkness too, and every dragon slayer has their own ability. Now previously they widened their eyes and now they were dumbfounded as the amount of possibilities that Slayer could have and the possible that they might possess. Naruto read the scroll further. Now, as I was one of the last Dragon Slayer along with 6 others, so I don't any ability that other dragons may possess except from the 7 of us. The Dragon Slayer that I knew were lightning/thunder, sky/wind, metal/iron, venom/poison, shadow, light, and myself the fire dragon. Every slayer has few abilities in common that has been written in the letter in which this scroll was, but some abilities that we possess were different from others. First of all, about the fire dragon slaying abilities. We are resistant to our own elements as the others, but unlike them, the Fire Dragon Slayer possess something that is known as the flames of emotion. In short, it means the stronger your emotions are, the stronger, brighter and hotter your flames will be. Metal/Iron Dragon Slayer. Same like the fire, could eat any metal to restore chakra. The special ability that could possess could cover his body to turn your whole body, including you, into a living, moving armor. You could also turn your hands into swords, saw, and any metallic weapon. Lightning/Thunder Dragon Slayer. Similar abilities, but this element allow you to turn yourself into lightning and do combats. You could travel large distance in short amount of time and could increase the strength of your body by bulking yourself up. Sky/Wind Dragon Slayer. Again, they have common abilities regarding their elements, but unlike them, being a Wind/Sky Dragon Slayer has many advantages. First, you could practically heal yourself of any sickness and injury. Also, you could heal others too. But unlike others, this element allow your body to be flexible and moving. Also, you could also use the Sky Dragon abilities to torture by increasing the amount of pain and messing with the nervous system of a person. You could also use the element to fly and heal sickness of any kind. A Sky Dragon is also known for restoring chakra and being kind-hearted yet sadistic when required. Also, they don't seem to run out of chakra as long as they breathe due to their elements aligning themselves to the air. Poison/Venom Dragon Slayer. Same with the abilities like the other Dragon Slayer, as these are not your day-to-day elemental Dragon Slayer. The first thing he gets was being resistant to every kind of poison known and unknown to mankind. These Slayers could also create antidote to the poison on the spot if you give them the taste of the poison. Moreover, these slaying provides with ability to hear things that normal Slayer cannot. Being a Poison Dragon Slayer gives you the ability to read minds and thoughts. Light Dragon Slayer. Also known as the Holy Dragon Slayer. The special ability of this Dragon Slayer traveling as fast as light, but also the fact that this Dragon Slayer has the ability to destroy and harm everything evil. Shadow Dragon Slayer. If you are somehow aligned to shadows, the Shadow Dragon ability gives you the ability to eat and move in between shadows. You could even jump into the shadows of the person and control them while being hidden in the shadow of the person. When you are in shade, you could use your ability to power your shadow abilities. You could feel the silence as the first part of the scroll regarding Dragon Slayers and the abilities they could possess was completed. They were all flabbergasted with the amount of ability a Dragon Slayer could possess, and Naruto decides to read what the moves that they could. Now, before you try out these moves, try to find what your element is, and when you find it, try to consume as much of the element that you could without hurting yourself, and give your body a rest before applying the techniques and moves in use. Main part, you don't need to make hand sign for these moves. Now, the moves that are common into them are, first and foremost, the Roar, commonly known as the Dragon Roar, signature move of a Slayer. These moves let out a huge burst of the element that you are aligned to. Now, a warning: when you are learning about this move, try to use minimum amount of chakra you could apply to lessen the destruction. How to do this move: gather huge amount of chakra in your mouth while keeping in mind the element and the feeling it gives you, and then let it loose. Sounds simple, right? But unfortunately it is not.